much. You may please be seated. Thank you. Your Excellency, the Governor of Akwa Ibom State and the chief host of this event, represented at this intellectual exercise by a man of letters himself, a five-star son of Akwa Ibom, multiple award-winning journalist and public relations practitioner himself, and currently Deputy Governor of Akwa Ibom State. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, can we please put our hands together one more time for Mr. Moses Ekpo MFR, Deputy Governor of Akwa Ibom State. My Lord, the Chief Judge of Akwa Ibom State, represented here by Honorable Justice Basin Kana, we welcome you, my Lord. The Chairman of this 35th anniversary lecture, and the distinguished Professor of Philosophy, the Reverend Monsignor Professor Sylvanus Udoidem. Can we please put our hands together for the Chairman on this occasion? Thank you very much. Our revered guest lecturer, the immediate past President of Ohanaeze Ndigbo, and of course, former Federal Minister of Information, Chief John Nwodo, who is here with us. Please put your hands together for him, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome members of the National Assembly here present, distinguished Senator Aloysius Etuk, I can see from here, and of course, a member of the House of Representatives and Chairman of the House of Reps Committee on Judiciary, our own former Speaker of the House of Assembly, the Right Honorable Barrister Onofiok Liuk, who today is one of the discussants. Please put your hands together for him, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome members of the Akwa Ibom State House of Assembly, the Leader of the House of Assembly, the Right Honorable Sir Udokiri, and leading other members of the House of Assembly to this event. Can we please welcome them with a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Secretary to the Akwa Ibom State Government, who doubles as Chairman of the Central Planning Committee for the Akwa Ibom 35 celebrations, Dr. Emmanuel Ekuwem, we welcome you, sir. Please put your hands together for him, ladies and gentlemen. Head of the Civil Service of Akwa Ibom State, Elder Efyong Essien, we welcome you, sir. Commissioners and special advisors, all of whom are here at this event, we welcome you very specially. We welcome also the chairman of boards, commissions, and technical committees, together with their members who are here. Former Secretary to the Akwa Ibom State Government and National President of the Pan-Niger Delta Forum, Panda, Fobawan Grace Sekong, we welcome you. Heads of security and paramilitary agencies that are here, we welcome you all. We welcome permanent secretaries and heads of extra-ministerial departments here present at this event. Discussants at this lecture, distinguished academics and sons and daughters of Akwa Ibom State, we welcome you. Chairman of local government areas, led by the Chairman of Algon, Honorable Inyobong Robson, all of whom have come with their vice chairman, and the leaders of the legislature in the local government areas. Please put your hands together and welcome them, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. We welcome the president of Mbogo Mparawai Bibio and all the members of Mbogo and the leadership and members of other socio-cultural organizations that are here. We welcome members of professional bodies that are here. Not long ago, I saw the state chairman of the Nigerian Bar Association, the Nigerian Society of Engineers, the Nigerian Medical Association, the Nigerian Union of Journalists, and a host of others who are here at this event. Leadership of student bodies that are here. Clergymen that are here from different religious denominations. We welcome all our specially invited guests, gentlemen of the press, and members of the fourth estate of the realm, those who are watching the live signals which are being telecast on the television service of Akwa Ibom Broadcasting Corporation, and of course are being streamed live on the official social media handles of the government of Akwa Ibom State across different social media platforms. We thank you very much for joining us, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Today, the 16th day of October 2022, 16 clear days after we started the month-long celebration of Akwa Ibom at 35. There are a good number of people here who are old enough to know the history of the state. Some have played a part in shaping the trajectory of development of our state. But we are here for this significant event, a public lecture to commemorate this event, so that we can exchange ideas, we can have a diffusion of knowledge, we can look back so we can look forward, and we can bring the past and the future together in the present. We're here to sit for an hour or two so that we can discuss, listen to experiences, and get inputs from people who should know, our brothers, our sisters, our friends, even as we continue the march of developing our state into a world-class destination, knowing that we owe the generation coming after us, unquestionable, the duty of leaving a better state for them than the one that we were born in. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the people seated in this room are the first set of people ever to be called Akwa Ibomites, because we belong in the generation that actually have had to bear that name for the very first time. It is important that we bequeath a legacy that is important and a legacy that is enviable to those that will come after us. So let me, on behalf of the His Excellency the Governor, the Central Planning Committee led by the Secretary of the Government, as Master of Ceremonies, welcome you to this event. My name is Raphael Edem, Special Assistant to the Governor on Public Affairs, and I'll be working with my brother and friend Aniakan Udofia on this microphone. Let me apologize that this event is beginning behind schedule. We needed to dot a few I's and cross a few T's, but we will make up for the lost time by ensuring that we do not keep anybody here longer than necessary. So we thank you very much for your time, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and I want to request one more time, all of the people that are here and are happy to be here, please put your hands together for yourselves, wherever it is that you are. Thank you very, very much. Let me invite to situate this event in proper perspective and welcome us to this event officially, the Chairman of the Central Planning Committee for the anniversary celebrations, himself a distinguished academic and of course, a gentleman who loves people that studied physics, especially if they studied in Ife, Secretary to the Akwa Ibom State Government, Dr. Emmanuel Ekowem. Please put your hands together for him, ladies and gentlemen.
Raphael Edem. It's only those who studied physics, any course that you studied and you excelled. Yes, I like engineering, but I love physics. Your Excellency, the Governor of Akwa Ibom State, who is ably represented by His Excellency, the Deputy Governor, Your Excellency, the guest speaker, John Nyanwodo, the distinguished senators that are gathered here, the chairman of this event, the Right Reverend Monsignor Professor Odoide that is seated here with us, members of the Akwa Ibom State House of Assembly that are here. Sorry. One of the important discussions I made along with the discussant, a member of the House of Representatives, a former Speaker of Akwa Ibom State House of Assembly, the Right Honorable Onofio Duke, my friends in the Akwa Ibom State Executive Council that are here, the President General of Mbo Parawa that I cited a few minutes ago, very distinguished and graceful local government chairman and vice chairman of councils that are here, the state controller of immigration that is here with us, other distinguished guests that are here, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen. This event, to have a special lecture marking Akwa Ibom State at 35, is to enable us as a people do a form of introspection, almost close to a retreat. And as I always say, we should not forget what it means to have a recollection, to have a retreat, to have a lecture, not just for the intellectual purpose, but to have the content for us to know where have we been, where are we coming from, where are we currently, and where are we heading. And if I want to use an engineering phrase here, to minimize the error function, in the transfer function is to minimize the error. Look at where you are heading, in other words, with respect to where you should be and where you are. And what you need to do as a living society is that at all times you minimize the error between what should and what is. And that's why I have a scholar today, former President General Bohanes Dendigo, former minister, a fine gentleman, blessed by the Almighty God with a profound intellect, to help us take a peep at where we are coming from, where we are and where we are heading. It was Fela Nicola Kokuti who made a statement in Kalakuta Republic. It's a person where don't know where they come from. You know, if you know where in they, I ain't going to know where in they go. It's a serious statement. For that could be very philosophical. So this lecture is about that. The land of promise, that we're moving at a jet speed towards the land of fulfillment. And our brother, you know, sometimes you have to take a step backward to look at who you are. When you are a dancer, you're not able to know exactly how well you are dancing except others who are watching you dance. Some of the times you're able to be correct, you're able to correct yourself because some other person mentioned it to you. And you find it takes a sound mind, like His Excellency John Nwodo, who would deliver the lecture to also tell us where we are and where we should be heading. Lastly, let's not forget the title of the lecture. The theme is Akwa Ibom State, the journey to world class. We deliberately, His Excellency, the Governor of Akwa Ibom State, deliberately used the definite article D, journey, and not a journey. In other words, we are already on the path. We are already moving there. And how far are we moving? And at what speed are we moving? What role should we be playing? What should be the changes in mindsets? Like the PDP governorship candidate said a few days ago in one of the events that he pioneered and is still husbanding about Ibom Ignite. So we become the best of what we should be. It was the great Zik of Africa who made a statement that I agree a lot. He said, if you are not a stem, be a branch. If you are not a branch, be a root. If you are not a root, be a leaf. If you are not a leaf, be a flower. Be one of the component parts of a healthy tree. And that's what we should be as a people. So more often than not, we don't even know where we are. We don't appreciate what we are. And it was my parish priest in Lagos who when people were complaining about Nigeria being too bad, said at the end of his homily, the Reverend Father said, when you go home, do you know who is responsible for the problems of Nigeria? The whole church was quiet. Then he said, this is what you should do to know who is responsible. When you get home, walk to the nearest mirror and you will see who is part of the problem of Nigeria. When you go home and you look at the mirror, who do you see? Of course, yourself. So the lecturer today would also tell us about ourselves, where we are heading, where we should be heading, and in order to help us as a people minimize the error function between what should and what is. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you very much. I'd like to again welcome you to the 35th anniversary lecture of Akwa Ibom State with the theme, The Journey to World Class. I have the singular honor to bring the chairman of this lecture. It will interest you to know that the chairman of this lecture is one whose story talks about the burning passion in Akwa Ibom State and the earnest desire to succeed against all odds. It's a true story of the Akwa Ibom spirit and the true story of the Nigerian spirit. It will also interest you to know that at the tender age of 2 months, he lost his mother and had to struggle through life without the care of a mother. How has this man attained the height of a professor from this background? At the tender age of 10, he had the opportunity to deliver a community address. Just a 10-year-old child standing before a bishop to deliver an address. And that was the moment that shot him to prominence. Ever since, this great son of Akwa Ibom has continued to rise. That we can say in Akwa Ibom, we have our own Mandelas, we have our own Desmond Tutu in this man who is the chairman on today's occasion. Please join me as I welcome a professor of philosophy, a one we're proud of. Professor, Reverend Monsignor Sylvanus Odoide.
Well, for obvious reasons, Whenever I mount the podium, I make sure that I adjust the microphone properly. My dear Akwa Ibom people, Akwa Ibom is song, Akwa Ibom is song, Akwa Ibom is medio. I have been asked to serve as the chairman on this occasion. I'm happy to be one. But before I say a few words, let me begin by welcoming His Excellency Governor Udom Emmanuel, who is here. Even though you don't see, I can see him. And his deputy, who is here in dual capacity as a representative of the governor and in his own right as His Excellency Moses Egbo, the Secretary to the Government, Dr. Ekuwem. Let me not continue. You know, as a classroom teacher, you may not be used to the protocols, but let me say that everyone is happily welcomed, and I stand on the protocol that has been excellently established. I dare not try to emulate. Definitely I know I will make mistake, because as a classroom teacher, I'm used to walking in and the students stand up and I say, sit down. And then I begin to teach. That's all I know what to do. So thank you for accepting my deficiency in that area. Well, let me say, in 1928, Akwa Ibom people collectively had a vision. In that vision, they woke up and wondered what they saw. Can it be possible? And then they dreamt again and woke up with the modality of getting towards the vision that they had. And they wondered, can we make it? But with time, praying together, believing together that what they saw and the dream that they had is possible. It can be realized. And they started working. It didn't take too long. 35 years ago, the dream came true. Akwa Ibom State was created. Then they continued to work on the mechanics, the dynamics of how to reach the vision. Yes, the dream has been realized, but the vision is yet to be attained. We have been working on that methodology, as it were, of realizing the vision. We have had several governors But today, we can look back and say, to God be the glory. Akwa Ibom has not been left behind. So we are here today with an erudite scholar, our own brother from the next state that we share the same boundary. When you listen to what he has to say, you will know that he even knows more about Akwa Ibom than Akwa Ibom people. Is to tell us something about the journey to the first class. Yes, it is a journey that is our dream. We are already working towards. We are getting there, and we will get there. The recommendation that he has made at the conclusion of his speech, he said, hold fast to God. Believe that it is possible. And I share that with him. So we thank him for coming. And I want to say to the Akwa Ibom people that we are here, this is an intellectual harvest of the best of the bests. And of course the discussant, we couldn't ask for more. So we thank all of you for coming, so that together we can keep the dream and the vision of Akwa Ibom alive. The journey to world class. There are many indices of being a world class state, but this is not the time to start discussing all those. But we are happy that after 35 years, we are still on the move to get to where we are supposed to be. Today, we ask the Almighty God to take control so that the things that we discuss, the things that we hear, we will internalize and of course eventually put it into practice so that our vision will eventually be realized. Thank you very much. May God bless you.
Author of over 32 books, over 50 journal articles, former rector magnificus of the Catholic Institute of West Africa, and for over 30 years on the staff of the University of Port Harcourt and serving as Dean of Humanities. Great son of Mkpadenin local government area of Akwa Ibom State and chairman on this occasion. Can we please put our hands together one more time for the Reverend Monsignor Professor Sylvanus Udoidem. Very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I usually, as a master of ceremonies, do my best to recognize as many people as I can remember their names, I can see their faces, or people that I have their names sent to me. But every single day, despite our best efforts, we still find ourselves leaving out a few people. And sometimes it gets a little bit difficult. So if you would not mind, I'd love to share with you an experience, and we have a good number of professors here, of something that one of their colleagues, a fellow professor, who was of the Department of Agriculture in one of the universities, did in one of his classes. The gentleman professor brought 5 species of different birds to class one day, with the intention of testing his students. He put all the birds on a pedestal and used something to cover the birds from the head, so only the feet of the birds were showing. 5 different species of birds. And then he labeled them specimens A, B, C, D, and E. And the test was simple. Just one question. It's the way Professor Valerie is looking at me, because she's a professor of agriculture herself. The question to the students was, look at the feet of the birds and identify them. So when you go and check, you know which one is a duck, which one is a different kind of bird, which one is a chicken, and which one is an eagle, if there was an eagle. One question. Look at the feet of the birds and identify them. And the students started cracking their brains and looking. And one of the students protested. I said, Prof, I cannot write this kind of test. I don't understand. How are we supposed to look at the feet of the birds and know their names? And the prof said, it's fine, it's not compulsory, you can step out of the class. One less headache to bother about. And as the young man was storming out of the class, the professor said, hey young man, tell me your name. Let me write here that you did not write my test. The young man brought out his leg and showed the professor and said, Prof, look at my leg and tell me my name. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, if there's anybody sitting next to you and you don't know the person's name, please look at the person's leg. It just may give you an idea of the person's name. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, quite a lot. People are looking at their feet now and they're really taking it seriously. Quite a lot has been said. And just before we get into this lecture, I'm going to invite Consultee and his band of theater practitioners. And they will take about 10 minutes and put up a brief dance drama display that will take our mind back 35 years and in 10 minutes bring our mind back to the present. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome Consultee and the theater for this dance drama. Please put your hands together for them. Thank you very much.
The tales of joy and gladness. I come from Edom. We live together in peace and in war, in joy and in sadness. It all depends on the side of the bed you choose to wake. Some good 35 years ago, my kinsmen told me that it is time I take a wife. I laughed. I laughed because I had nothing. Nothing except for people. Nothing except For the lonely roads bequeathed me by my uncles, I also inherited a few industries, majorly non-functional. But I had hope that with God, only God, things will get better. That one day I will have a son who will come to turn things around for my family. So I took the bride, and in a colorful, beautiful ceremony, the sisters handed her over to me. My bride drew attention of people from far and near. A steward was sent to take over the affairs of my homestay. He was a warrior from the king's guard. Then came another, Adibe, and another came, and finally there came another. As a comforter, our people called him Idomeset, because he was the first from amongst us. He was well celebrated, and he made a mark. He changed the face of my homestead. My workers had a place to do their work. And above all, he left with a good name. When he left to serve the king, we had to choose another son as the new steward. So we chose Akwa Ibom. Although Akwa didn't stay for long, but he came with Ubom Noir and made us think big, big. When he was taken back to serve the king, the only opportunity we had to choose one of our own as the next steward was when Victor came. Was determined to reclaim everything that belonged to us. He sat down, drew a plan of how things should be done. Fearlessly, he spoke for us. He was a man of goodwill. He was a warrior. And above all, he was a fighter and a victor. Victor was loved by all. He handled the affairs of my home state with absolute maturity and proficiency. And at the right time, he handed over a well-drawn-out plan of how my home state can be taken up there. And he left by saying, "It is well with my soul." And then came another, who was said to be the will of God. From north to south, east to west, he had enough resources to make the mark. And after 8 years of transformation, God sent to us another one, has a soft touch of dew, so refreshing and timely. was royal entry for a man whose coming has brought peace and attitudinal change to my homestead.
My fellow Akwa Ibomites, my service is to engender a new order, to ignite the spirit of entrepreneurship in our people, and to show through positive things that all they need to strive and succeed is embedded in them. Yes. My people, we must dare to dream and prove our doubters wrong. When the mind is positive and we have the right attitude, we shall achieve great and enduring things. My people, let's get to work. It is time to work and not wait for the government to do everything for us.
Rise to the threat of breakers and women
Akwa Ibom, Edakeda.
The warring youths, the suspicious women, the envious sisters, the fighting brothers, the guardians, the priests, the farmers, the blacksmiths, the fishermen, all have come together to work towards the growth and well-being of my beloved bride. Today, my bride stands tall in the gathering of women, shining like the sun. Today, my bride flies around the nation, the best of the best. My people, today my bride is an epitome of greatness. My people, let us celebrate greatness brought to us by good stewardship. This journey is a journey that you will never forget. Even as he is ready to leave us with a golden gift.
Thank you very much. Akwa Ibom, the journey so far, a dance drama written and directed by Thomas Eto. Please put your hands together for them, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very, very much. A cast of some very fine theater practitioners and dancers of Akwa Ibom origin, taking our minds back 35 years, bringing our minds here to the present, even as I invite you to sit back and relax as we begin a journey into the future. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the high point of this event. The point we're all going to sit back and listen to a man who knows what to say about any topic he chooses to speak on. A point where there is going to be a diffusion of knowledge, a looking back at the past and a looking forward at the future. The bringing of the past and the future together in the present, even as we are here continuing the celebration of our 35 years of statehood. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we're taking the trouble to include the profiles of all of our speakers, the chairman and the discussants. And so I would spare you the trouble. But then I love to tell people that at some events where I attended a training on emceeing very many years ago, I was told that you introduce somebody who is not known to an audience that doesn't know him. But when the audience already knows him and knows what to expect from him, you don't introduce him, you only present him. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, permit me to present our guest lecturer to speak on the topic, Akwa Ibom, the journey to world class. Former Minister of Information, immediate past President General of Ohanes Ndibo. Please put your hands together for Chief John Nea Ngodo as he addresses us. Thank you.
Your Excellency, the Deputy Governor of Akwa Ibom, and a very close friend of mine, may I, through you, salute His Excellency Udo Emmanuel in absentia, and through you, rest on existing protocol. This function came to me as a great surprise. I was given less than 2 weeks to prepare this lecture. I stand in awe, trepidation, extremely nervous for very many reasons. Number one, I think Akwa Ibom probably qualifies as the most literate state in Nigeria. There's hardly anybody here who can't speak at least broken English. Because of the multiplicity of dialects, everyone can speak a little bit of English. And you have a plethora of professors. Our chairman today is one who has published over 30 books and written over 50 journals. And he describes me as an intellectual. I feel humbled, because I feel trepidation talking before him. The Secretary to Government and the Deputy Governor are my very close friends, and I begin to wonder whether there was a conspiracy behind me to subject me to this kind of embarrassment. They both know that I lost my wife 9 years ago, and may I please salute my Lord who represents the Chief Justice, because I'm also a lawyer, and my wife died as a Justice of the Court of Appeal. But because my friends know that she died 9 years ago, they brought very beautiful Akwa Ibom women and want to tempt me at 70 to begin to look for another wife. However, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, may I rest on already established protocols. I'm delighted to be here today to join my brothers and sisters of Akwa Ibom State in this your outstanding state, where you have come together to celebrate 35 years of the creation of this state. On the 23rd of September 1987, the then military administration of His Excellency General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida created Akwa Ibom State, bringing to a joyful end the prolonged struggle of its people who had previously occupied the mainland part of the former Cross River State. Akwa Ibom State currently covers a total land area. I must give you a foreknotice that some of the text here will not be in the text that you're carrying. So whenever it gets to it, you can leave your book and look at me. So it covers a total land area of 7,249 square kilometers. It is the 10th largest state in Nigeria in terms of land mass. About 13.4% of Nigeria's Atlantic Ocean coastline runs through this state. The people of Akwa Ibom are culturally homogeneous, with a common identity and reputed to be the first settlers in the present-day southeast Nigeria. The three major dialectical groups in Akwa Ibom are Ibibio, Anang, and Oron. Other subgroups include Eket, Ibeno, Itu, Mbanaso, and Adonis. Akwa Ibom falls within the tropical zone with a dominant vegetation of green foliage of trees and shrubs. It constitutes a major chunk of Nigeria's oil palm belt. Its Atlantic coastline stretches 129 kilometers from Oron in the east to Ikorabasi in the west. The state has three distinct vegetation zones, namely the saline water swamp forest, the freshwater swamp forest, and the rainforest. Akwa Ibom is often described as a unicultural state where norms, taboos, customs, and traditions are the same. These cultural similarities bound the people together in such areas as cuisines, Erika Ekong, dressing, dances, songs, rituals, folklores, beliefs, and myths. In 35 years of our existence, Akwa Ibom has been governed by 10 governors, 6 of whom were military governors who served for very short periods. Of the civilian governors, 2 completed 8 years in office, and 1, the incumbent governor, is in his 8th year in office. Every one of the 10 governors made remarkable contributions towards the development of Akwa Ibom State. But without doubt, 3 governors, His Excellency Architect Victor Atta, Governor Godswill Akpabio, and the incumbent governor, Emmanuel Udom, have made the most outstanding contributions. What I find particularly remarkable in their focus is their focus on building a remarkable infrastructural base for the promotion of tourism, education, and production. In this connection, special mention and appreciation must be conveyed to the incumbent governor for the massive diversification of his approach. Perhaps because of his banking background, he has emphasized on projects with great capacity for self-sustenance and stimulation of other areas of production. Here I mean investments in power generation, in 20 industries, in modern greenhouses and staple food farming, in healthcare, free and compulsory educational investments, and the modern 27 aircraft capacity airline, Ibom Air. Perhaps these aggregate investments led the organizers of this event to choose the topic of our discussion today as the journey to world class. Whereas I agree that Akwa Ibom is unlike many other states in Nigeria on its journey to world class, I however have strong reservations on serious but surmountable obstacles which, if not overcome, could compromise this journey to world class. Let me turn now to these surmountable obstacles, which include the future of Nigeria, the necessity for choosing the right leadership in the country and in Akwa Ibom State going forward, the need for peace and cohesion in Akwa Ibom, and finally, total resignation to God. Let us begin with the future of Nigeria. As I speak to you now, Akwa Ibom State, despite sitting on about 36.1% of Nigeria's oil and gas reserves, has no single investment by the federal government in the upstream and downstream sectors of our oil and gas industry. Nigeria is the largest producer in Africa and the sixth largest producer in the world of oil. Nigeria had originally four refineries, oil refineries, but following the merger of two of them, we now have three refineries, namely the Port Harcourt refinery with an installed refining capacity of 210 barrels per day. The Warri refinery, which was established in 1978 with a refining capacity of 100,000 barrels a day. It increased in 1987 to 125,000 barrels per day and was constructed for the production of liquefied petroleum gas, LPG, PMS, petroleum motor spirit, and dual-purpose kerosene, DPK, automotive gas, AGO, and fuel oil. Each petrochemical plant was built to produce propylene and carbon black. The third refinery, Kaduna Refinery, is the only refinery built outside an oil-producing state. It was established with a plate capacity of 100,000 barrels per day. It was established with capacity to produce liquefied petroleum gas, premium motor spirit, household kerosene, aviation turbine, kerosene, automotive gas oil, fuel oil, and linear alkali benzene. It is important to note that none of the above three refineries in Nigeria is in full production today. In fact, some of them are now shadows of themselves. Sadly, this is notwithstanding that we are the sixth largest producer of crude oil in the world, and despite processing no crude oil, in June 2020, Nigeria's three refineries cost the nation 10 billion naira in repairs and maintenance. We now have under construction the Dangote refinery in Lagos with a refining capacity of about 650 barrels per day of crude oil, and when completed, with annual production of 10.4 million tons of gasoline in addition to 4.6 metric tons of diesel. The federal government has invested a total of $2.76 billion to acquire 20% shares in this refinery. Writing in Nigerian Tribune in January 16, 2022, Collins Nabife claims that Nigeria is the only OPEC country that imports 90 to 95% of its domestically consumed petroleum products. In its 2021 report, the latest values of petroleum exports and imports of member nations of OPEC stated that Nigeria exported $27.73 billion worth of petroleum products in 2020. It also revealed that the value of the country's petroleum imports in 2020 was $71.28 billion, which indicated that Nigeria's imports exceeded exports by $43.56 billion during the period under review. Further analysis of OPEC's latest petroleum import and export figures showed that Nigeria's imports of petroleum products consistently exceeded the country's exports for 5 years. Although Nigeria is a major producer of crude oil and gas, the country largely depends on imported petroleum products that are refined in foreign countries. The report further stated that foreign refineries processed 145.86 million barrels of oil for Nigeria between March 2020 and March 2021 due to malfunctional state of Nigeria's refineries in Port Harcourt, Warri, and Kaduna. In summary, OPEC claims that Nigeria in just 2020 spent $71.29 billion in importation of petroleum products. Meanwhile, investigation and prosecution on the genuineness of these importation figures in Nigeria and subsidies faced for them have stalled over the years. Nigeria, meanwhile, remains the only OPEC member that imports 95% of refined petroleum products for domestic use. The following countries are major sources of imported Nigerian fuel: Netherlands, Belgium, Benin Republic in Africa, India, France, Togo, United Arab Emirates, Côte d'Ivoire, which is Ivory Coast, Romania, Malaysia, Saudi Arabia, Equatorial Guinea, Gabon,
Brazil, Ethiopia, China, Spain, among others. In July 2022, OPEC increased Nigeria's oil production quota to 1,830 million barrels per day. But as of July this year, Nigeria was still only able to produce 1,238 million barrels of crude oil per day. In 2016, Nigeria was producing 1,938,524.3 barrels per day. Why are we unable to meet OPEC quota? Silas Felix Anayo, writing from Ahmadu Bello University on illegal bunkering and oil theft in Nigeria, its impact on national economy and the way forward, reveals that from his findings, and I quote, the nation has incurred colossal losses of oil revenues estimated at 1.29 trillion to industrial scale theft yearly, withdrawal of foreign investors and companies, degradation of local environment, increased acquisition of light arms and ammunition, high incidence of school dropouts among primary and secondary school pupils and students, which government has done not enough to combat their negative trends. Meanwhile, in the first quarter of this year, Nigeria's public debt rose to 4.1 trillion naira from 41.6 trillion naira from 39.56 trillion naira recorded at the end of December 2021, putting enormous pressure on debt servicing. Furthermore, on July 20, 2022, we were told that compared to last year, Nigeria's debt service to revenue ratio increased from 81% in 2020 to 96% in the year under review. According to data from the DMO, Nigeria's debt to Washington-based World Bank was 12.38 billion as at 31st December 2021. That's last year. The financial statements of the World Bank for fiscal year this year show that Nigeria owes the lending institution $13.0 billion as of June this year. There is, however, nothing inherently bad in owing as long as the debt is invested in income-yielding assets. Unfortunately, most of what we see as expenditure is recurrent and not capital expenditure yielding income. Compounding this low growth in production is the falling value of exports and consequently devaluation of our natural currency, as well as the gargantuan rise of insecurity, unemployment, shutting down of universities, and collapse of road, rail, and air transportation. Only yesterday, our inflation rate galloped to over 20%. Only a few months ago, we witnessed the following unprecedented security breaches in the country. One, a convoy of the presidential fleet on its way to Katsina in advance of the President's Salah holidays retreat to Katsina was attacked. I mean, I've never had a country where a head of state's convoy was attacked. And nobody could foretell it, and nobody could stop it. A Nigerian Railway Corporation train was attacked between Kaduna and Abuja by unknown gunmen who kidnapped a number of passengers aboard the train and freely made televised threats to the federal government and demanded ransoms, which were negotiated for them and freely paid by relatives of some of the kidnapped passengers. Some of the hostages were released without our security revealing the location of the kidnappers or the kidnapped or engaging them. 3, a medium security prison in Abuja was successfully invaded by terrorists who succeeded in selectively resisting some of their members with little or no resistance from prison authorities. The armed security and our national intelligence formations. The CCTV cameras in the prison went blank. Until today, no public commission of inquiry is investigating this such incident. Every day, a series of Nigerians are attacked, robbed, killed, or kidnapped in their farms, highways, and places of worship with reckless abandon. Only a few days ago, a senator was attacked with his convoy, inflicting several damages on his personal staff in Enugu in Anambra State. Missionaries of the Christian domination are killed and kidnapped for ransom without any arrests of the perpetrators. Our federal universities have been closed for a greater part of one academic session without any successful completion. It appears to me indisputable that every Nigerian is today, more than any other time, except perhaps during the Civil War, preoccupied with the gloom which our present economic and political problems portends for the future of our country. Our country is a nation blessed with abundant human and natural resources, in spite of which it is categorized by the World Poverty Clock in these words. Nigeria's population in extreme poverty is rising by 5.7 billion people per minute. The situation in Nigeria is such that in February 2019, World Poverty Clock predicted it will overtake India as having the most people living at 82 million people in extreme poverty. This prediction has already come true, and we now are the world's most poor country. Michael Kilikume, writing in Daily Trust newspaper 6 years ago, describes Nigeria thus, and I quote, "Nigerian economy has grossly underperformed relative to her enormous resource endowment and her peer nations. It has the 6th largest gas reserves in the world. It is endowed in commercial quantities with about 37 solid minerals and has a population of over 100. Yet, economic performance has been rather weak and does not reflect these endowments compared with emerging Asian countries, notably Thailand, Malaysia, India, China, and Indonesia, that were behind Nigeria in terms of GDP per capita in 1970. Only miles ahead of Nigeria, but are also major players in the global economic arena. In 2017, Oshiamaya Sengna, an Indian writing in worldatlas.com, ranked Nigeria as the world's greatest producer of cassava with 47.4 million tons, followed by Thailand with 30.2 million, Indonesia with 23.9 million, and Brazil with 21.4 million. Cassava is the basis of a multitude of products, including food, flour, animal feed, ethanol, alcohol, starches for sizing paper and textiles, sweeteners, prepared foods, and biodegradable products. In none of these exports is Nigeria a leading exporter. Instead, Nigeria is a huge importer of ethanol. Nigeria is the 2nd largest grower of tomatoes in Africa, coming after Egypt. Notwithstanding this, we are the highest importer of tomato puree in Africa. Nigeria is the 3rd largest grower of cattle in Africa and the largest grower in sub-Saharan Africa, with an estimated annual production of 19.8 million cattle. Cynthia Ebobo, writing in Business Day in July 6, 2019, reports that Nigeria spends 1.3 billion annually on importation of dairy products like milk, yogurt, and cheese. She quoted Bello Umar, Nigeria's then Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Agriculture, who at the 4th Global Dairy Congress of Africa in Abuja said, and I quote, "Nigeria produces 13% of dairy in West Africa, in spite of being the largest producer of cattle in West Africa, and 0.01% of global dairy, that's milk, at a production capacity of 50,000 liters daily, less than 20% of our local potential." In the face of this economic reality, the Population Reference Bureau predicted that Nigeria will in 2050 become the world's 4th largest population, with a growing population of 397 million, coming after China, India, and United States of America. This is only 28 years away. Any other country in our situation would have declared a state of emergency long ago to plan for the day oil will fall. Saudi Arabia is investing $110 billion to develop its estimated 200 trillion cubic feet of wet gas by 2036. When completed, it will provide 8.6 billion annual income and add 20 billion annually to gross domestic product. This is apart from production boost in its economy, which will receive from an increased cheaper and diversified source of energy. Right now, research has reached an advanced stage in the United States on a new oil solid-based hybrid solar-based organic inorganic metal called perovskite, which using solar power technology has the capacity of turning sunlight into energy and expanding the science of medical imaging in newer and more profound dimensions. The photoelectric power conversion efficiency of perovskite solar cells has increased from 3.8% in 2009 to 22.1% in 2016, making these solar cells the best potential candidate for the new generation of solar cells to replace traditional silicon solar cells in future. Light absorption and photoelectric conversion has become better, more efficient, and a threat to oil-based economy. Research has also succeeded in the United States and Europe on a 5G telecommunications which has achieved an improved quality of speed of internet communications that will promote new models of self-driving cars, better movie downloads, improved node navigation, and the new medical diagnostic tool called the tricoder. China is already deploying 5G technology through its mega telecommunication company called Huawei. I need to do a little bit of explanation now. You know, this 5G technology has now developed self-driven cars in Europe and America and in China. I have seen one in the United States of America. It's a car, but it's a robot that drives itself. And I followed a friend of mine from his home to his office in this car. It recognizes every traffic light and knows when it is amber, when it is red, and when it is green. So it can stop at every road sign. And what you need when you enter is to program it. I'm going from Ibom Icon Hotel to State House. And it will take you through all the traffic lights and stop when it will stop. And it will take you to the gate of the government house and say, we have arrived government house. And then it will take you to the point at which you programmed it to stop in government house. And he took me and my friend to his office, dropped us in the porch, and when we closed the door and left it, it parked itself. Now, this thing called tricoder. The tricoder is an equipment you just breathe into, and it diagnoses your body and tells you all kinds of illnesses that could be combating your body. The world has moved to this stage. A new cell phone battery called graphene batteries has developed to replace lithium batteries. These graphene batteries will charge in 20 minutes instead of the average 90 minutes for conventional lithium batteries. It can stand 1,500 charge cycles instead of 30 to 500 cycles in lithium batteries. Israel's former Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, before he left office, informed the world of his country's new digital explorations. Apart from discovering the cure for cancer in Israel and the capacity to make life interminable, they can keep a sick person alive as long as they want. Israel can, by drone technology, determine the chemical deficiency of a plant in a farm without setting its foot on a farm. It can also cure deficiency in the plant by drone technology without entering the farm. It can use a drone to inject the missing vitamin in a plant in a farm just by scanning it and knowing that this plant lacks something. And it will, by drone technology, go to the plant and inject it. USA has also advanced drone technology with the capacity to go to war and shoot from self-driven drones and kill decisively without risking any human life in the field. Recently, this technology was used to exterminate an Iranian general considered a huge security threat to the United States of America. I'm sure you all know when an Iranian general was going to Iraq and the commander-in-chief in the United States of America, without leaving Washington, but just by deploying drones, it could monitor the convoy of the Iranian general and target them using drones. And they not only killed the Iranian general, and don't forget, bulletproof cars have compacted glasses that usually bullets find it difficult to penetrate. But in this case, they designed bullets that had the capacity to penetrate the armored vehicle and kill the man decisively. And while members of his entourage were running away in their convoy, the same drones photographed them, got their location while they were moving, and killed all of them. This is how modern technology has grown. These discoveries underline the importance of education in national development. According to UNICEF, 1 in every 5 of the world's out-of-school children is in Nigeria. Even though primary education is officially free and compulsory, about 10.5 million of Nigeria's children aged between 5 and 14 are out of school. BBC Hausa editor Jime Saleh, after meeting with Adamu Hussaini, Nigeria's then permanent secretary in the Federal Ministry of Education, declared that Nigeria has the highest number of children in the world who are not being educated. Mr. Hussaini said that the most affected were girls, street children, and children of nomadic groups. The BBC editor concluded that government-funded schools in Nigeria have practically collapsed over the years because of poor funding. UNICEF claims that 60% of the children out of school in Nigeria came from northern Nigeria. In 1970, when the war ended, I gained admission into University of Ibadan to study economics. Studying in a Nigerian university then was such a pleasure. To begin with, my roommates then and I lived in a 2-in-1-room apartment, but now they live about 6 or 8 in that room. The university laundered 8 clothes per week for us, trousers and shirts, and they laundered our bed sheets free, and our shower ran 24 hours. Our toilets flushed always. In each hall of residence, I had the privilege as president of Students' Union University of Ibadan to put a bar and buttery where you could have cool drinks and confectionaries at affordable prices directly from breweries and the university catering department. You were also allowed to entertain your guests at those air-conditioned lounges. You can't find, those who went to University of Ibadan here can bear me out. You can't find that in any Nigerian university today. Each faculty in Ibadan had a library apart from the Central University Library. Every journal published in the world was available in our libraries within 2 weeks of its publication. We had a university press which made publication of books by our lecturers easier and the books affordable. The university had a busy bookshop which sold textbooks, journals, magazines, novels. Accessibility to knowledge was guaranteed even without digital technology. Lecturers were encouraged to publish. Because of their scholarly publications, they were demanded globally. Every year, so many lecturers were engaged in prominent universities all over the world. Every year, several lecturers served out their sabbatical and returned with new knowledge, new exposure, modern cars, and the global and cosmopolitan saga. Many students developed ambitions to become lecturers. The first-class graduates were retained as assistant lecturers to take us in tutorial classes. The tutorial classes explained the lectures, deepened our knowledge of the subject matter, and took us through past question papers in order to widen our comprehension and prepare us for examinations. Suddenly, all this has disappeared. Instead, handouts have taken over because they are sold for extra cash by lecturers, even when they contain very little or represent copying or plagiarism. When you don't buy them, class reps report you, and When they report you to the lecturer, in some cases it is counted against you, even in the exams. Vice Chancellor after Vice Chancellor filed these menace, but they persist because the benchmark has fallen. The incomes have fallen. The foreign law no longer exists because our degrees have become worthless. Businessmen and politicians, as well as pretty female students, get degrees without attending lectures. Yes, if the source of knowledge is contaminated, like a contaminated water reservoir, can you get clean water? No. Once upon a time, a sitting governor in Nigeria was admitted as a student in one of our universities. He pretended to attend lectures in spite of his busy schedules, which made it impossible for him to attend all his lectures, but he was awarded a degree. Is such a degree respectable? Does this kind of practice recommend such a university as credible? I make this statement here because our universities remain our tabula rasa, the uncontaminated segment of our society which pursues and represents excellence. They must be devoid of sharp practices and acts capable of comprising their integrity within and outside our borders. Why have we slided unrestrainedly in this way? It is not just in education, but in vast areas of economic endeavor. Gamble, though rewriting in Vanguard newspaper in January 2020, in an article titled "The Sordid State of Nigerian Roads," narrated on the state of our roads and concluded that too many roads were being built in the same time, and most of them underfunded. He held that while some cities have good roads inside them, the roads connecting these cities or leading to our neighboring countries are in very hopeless conditions and are in the opposite of the beautiful roads connecting our neighboring countries. In his words, while reaching Seme from Lagos is always a Herculean task due to terrible condition of the road, the highway from there to Togo and on to Ghana is fairly smooth and can be covered without hassle. Education, road, agriculture are critical areas of development of a country's economic potential. Let us take Netherlands as an example in agriculture. Netherlands is the second largest exporter of food in the world, coming after United States of America. Its cross-sectional area is about half the size of Niger State, one of the 19 administrative units in Nigeria, if you include Abuja. It is the world's largest producer of tomatoes and vegetables. Its revenue from vegetables and dairy contribute more than 100 billion annually to its economy. The secret is education, better mechanized farming, growth of green farm technology, drone monitoring systems, and land reclamation by building of dams. Given the endowment of Akwa Ibom State in this regard, this state can beat Netherlands if Akwa Ibom investment is made in agricultural sector, following the example of the Netherlands. Mr. Chairman, there was a time when the mainstay of Nigeria's economy was was economy and agriculture. The North had granite pyramids, cotton and livestock. The West had cocoa. The Midwest had rubber, palm oil, and the East had palm produce, cashew nuts and cassava. At the same time, these agricultural yields were booming. We had an exponential growth in import substitution industries. Textile mills were established in the North, and in the East, cement factories, breweries, iron and steel complexes, power stations flourished. New universities were built and maintained to meet international standards. Our secondary schools attracted students from African countries. Our reputation in the West African Examination Council results were the highest. Our finished products were demanded in renowned universities. Now, this gives me an opportunity to relate a personal experience with you. When I was old enough to go to primary school, and in those days, it was when your hand could get to your ear. I don't know how many people shared that experience. So you didn't really start at a particular age. If you had a stunted growth, your education was retarded. Now, that was when I went to school. But I tell you, I went to a school in rural Enugu called St. Patrick's Iva Valley. Those of you who have lived in Enugu, Your Excellency, know that Iva Valley is in rural area. My father was Parliamentary Secretary for Health, a member of the Eastern Nigerian House of Assembly. Parliamentary Secretary was like Minister of State. Now, my classmate in St. Patrick's River Valley was the junior brother of my father's driver, Peter Enejere, the brother of James Enejere. He ended up as permanent secretary in Enugu State Ministry of Agriculture. There was no school for the minister's son and another school for the driver's son. I do not know if any of you here have children of primary education. I doubt if the children of your drivers would go to the same schools. Because the quality of the schools now are a function of how much school fees you pay. When we grew up, the quality was the same. Even when missionaries were investing in schools, the standards in the Ministry of Education were such that you couldn't compromise it. The school fees were cheap and it was affordable. Some were in fact free. We were giving milk in school to take home. We were giving Daraprin every Friday because it was a Sunday medicine that prevented us from getting malaria. You know, we had big fields. There are many primary schools that don't have fields anymore. I knew what doing 100 meters, or well, we called it 100 yards then, 220 yards. I knew how many times I would run around a field to do a mile. How does a country retard in its educational prowess, its wisdom? Something is fundamentally wrong. Well, if I go on to secondary school, the recollection is so painful. I went to College of Immaculate Conception in Enugu. At that time, my father had become Minister of Commerce and Industry. I went through the entrance examination with children of policemen, children of traders, children of coal miners. We wrote the exam the same day. The result was announced the same day. As a matter of fact, 80 of us were invited for interview, and they were only going to take 60 of us. But when they called the number to 35, and I didn't hear my name, I walked away and went to pack my things and to think about where to run away so that my father does not kill me by beating me. But I was called as number 36, and I wasn't there to answer my name. When somebody came and told me that my name was called, I rushed back. And when I rushed back, they told me I couldn't be interviewed until everybody had been interviewed because it was indiscipline for me not to exercise patience and to be there when my name was called. Of course, I waited. When I was called, the reverend brothers who were interviewing said, "You must be a very indisciplined child. Why didn't you wait to hear your name called?" And in tears, I said, I thought I had done very well and that I would have been amongst the first 25. But when 35 people were announced and I didn't hear my name, I assumed that I had failed. And I was thinking about where to escape to in order to escape from the wrath of my father. And as I was saying it, tears came down my eyes. And there was so much compassion for me. And I was admitted. In spite of the fact that I had passed to be admitted, I would not have been admitted. But it didn't end there. When we went to study, we didn't do alternative to practical. My own children, even though they have only one is still in university, they did alternative to practical. Can you imagine in your lifetime? I am an economist and a lawyer. But in in physics, I remember sound, I remember mechanics, I remember light, I remember reflection and refraction. In chemistry, chemistry was all about chemical reactions. I can look at my chemistry lab and I can see the Bunsen burner. I can even see the combustion of the Bunsen burner described as the striking back of the Bunsen burner. I can see the test tube. I can see the beaker. I can see all the chemical reactions. It was all about chemical reactions. I could see how we did oxidation, reduction, double decomposition, lateral displacement of radicals, crystallizations. I remember going to the lab to smell ammonia when I had cold. I could tell in the biology lab the bones from the cranium to the metatarsals. How many of our children can today do this? This is retrogression. We are falling into a pit. And that is why I have come to say, Akwa Ibom cannot be the only healthy finger in a cancerous set of fingers. You do not exist in an island. You are part of Nigeria. Your strength is your capacity to take the best out of areas that have what you do not have, and our capacity to take from you what you have. In the political arena, the major political parties have treated with complete disregard the yearning of the people of the old eastern Nigeria to have a go at the presidency. These disturbing national security occurrences are threatening the stability of our country. Akwa Ibom is part of a country called Nigeria. It cannot solely proceed to world class without the rest of the 35 states and Abuja. In fact, its journey to world class can be aborted by these current security threats and slow national economic growth. I make bold to say that the greatest good we can do to our country is to return it to a system where the states are allowed by constitution to be in charge of their domestic security, own and exploit their natural resources, while paying some royalty to the federal government for the maintenance of common services. This present unitary system of government is a military imposition on our constitution. It didn't grow out of our political systems. Without our disposing of it, I fear that Nigeria may be perpetually in turmoil. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I do not know how many of you experience the open denigration I do from our children and youths of their ages about how the generation of people like me have allowed our common heritage to go down the drain. I never held my forebears in such disdain. But my children tell me, your generation has wasted our potentialities. I'm sure those of my age here have been told the same by their children. We had good schools. When I was in university, I had East Central State Scholarship. I had loan from the Students' Loan Board. I bought a motorcycle to go to school from Independence Hall to the Faculty of Social Sciences, which was about 1 mile away. I rode in motorcycle every day. We had a more united country. Can you imagine 3 years after the war, I ran for election as president of Students' Union University of Ibadan. And I ran against a Yoruba man, Olu Adegboro. And contrary to regulations, he was singing in Yoruba and trying to get ethnic sentiments to be voted for. But there were Yorubas who said, no, this is not our Nigeria. I'm not sure it will still exist today. He said something like, Tiwan Tiwa, our own is our own. Jeka wole, Jeka wole, Adeboro, Otiwole. And, I had difficulty. I just talked about this a few weeks ago in Imo. And I had to look for something to say to catch the attention of the students in order to draw attention to me and my capability. And I practiced plagiarism. My senior brother had written his thesis on the role of United Nations and international organizations in the achievement of world peace. And he had used an expression which I will explain to you in a minute. But you see, my father, and I don't know how many of you whose father did this too, and it's a good thing to do. My father had a way of correcting our letters to him in red ink and sending you a self-addressed envelope. You rewrite the letter and you send your original letter and the corrected letter back to him. On one occasion, I made a mistake. My name was called in the assembly line. And when you have morning assembly in secondary school, the principal, after saying the prayers, says, and then makes a few announcements, and then you can go to your classrooms. In one of those announcements, he said John Wodo to see me immediately after prayers. When this is said in a secondary school, it means suspension or expulsion. My mental imagination ran riot as to what I would have done, and I was class prefect in class 3. What did I do to end this? What do I say to my parents that I was expelled or suspended? So, my classmates gave me courage, say, just go and see what it is. I went. You don't enter the principal's office unless he asks you to enter. And so I stood lambly by the side. The principal passed me without uttering a word to me. His secretary came from the office opposite him, entered without saying a word to me. When he came out, with a very stern look, he said, go in and see the principal. I walked in, trembling. But my father was then building a secondary school in my town, something that makes me feel a failure. My father built 2 secondary schools in my town. I haven't built a primary school. Now, the leaders of those days believed in empowering the people. Now, the principal told me that my father had requested for the best students in physics, chemistry, and biology and mathematics from the upper 6th class. Then you needed to do lower 6 and upper 6 before going to university. And you had to work for 9 months before you go to university, which was part of developing your reasoning capability to be matured. And he told me that several other schools have requested for the same boys, but my father requested first, and that I should let him send a car to pick those students that they were prepared to go to care. In my excitement, I forgot to ask the principal for permission to leave the school. And you needed to have an exit before the gate man could open the gates of the school. I got to my class and I was shivering. What do I do now? I won't give the message. I will be punished. I can't go back to the principal's office. A friend of mine is dead now. May his soul rest in peace, Mr. Waterali. He gave me a stamped envelope, and I quickly wrote a letter to my father. My principal brother Aloysius has asked me to do this and that. In between my principal and brother Aloysius, I omitted a comma. My father put a comma in red. And at the back of my letter, he said, my principal and brother Aloysius refer to one and the same person. In grammar, this is called noun in apposition and must be separated by comma or parenthesis. This is what we miss today because we don't have the teachers who can teach us. So I stole my brother's thesis when I was making my speech night in the University of Ibadan. My brother wrote on the role of the United Nations and international organizations in the achievement of world peace, using the intervening and prevailing legal institutes that govern nations. His thesis was in international law in the London School of Economics. Now, I stole it because my father made us summarize my brother's 160-something page thesis in 10 foolscap sheets. So each one of us had to read it and pretend that we understood it and write something. So when I was called up to speak after my opponent in Ibadan had sang in Yoruba, Ojeka Ole, Ojeka, and sensitized the Yoruba students, I felt that I needed to appeal to the soul of the great Yuite. So I stole my brother's. My brother had written that the Congo, he was discussing the Congo and the role of international organizations. And the Congo, in view of its central position in Africa, was like a continental political volcano. Accordingly, when it erupted, seismic waves ripped across the continent. So I said, the University of Ibadan, in view of its pioneering position in the development of universities in Nigeria, is like an educational political volcano. Accordingly, when Ibadan erupts, the rest of the universities in Nigeria catch cold. And you see how you just started clapping? That's how people of young age at that time felt. The Yorubas call it Laiwowe, you are speaking big grammar. They started clapping for me. And one young girl from what is now Bendel State, it was then Midwest State. She ran up to me and both of us fell on the ground, almost plastering kisses on my face. I've been looking for her since I've not been able to find her. Mr. Chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the necessity, my second preoccupation is the necessity for choosing the right leadership in the country and in Akwa Ibom going forward. The next elections in this country offer us an opportunity, an opportune moment to turn around our fortunes. I think that the various political parties in Nigeria give us no real reasons to believe that they have any guiding philosophy or even loyalty to their manifestos. The ease with which politicians defect from one party to another gives the impression that the membership of a political party is simply an acquisition of a platform to gain political office, rather than belief in a set of principles that define goals and objectives of a party. For this reason, I call on Nigerians to defy party affiliations and go out to elect people on the basis of their proven integrity, industry, commitment to societal welfare and progress. The kind we see in successive leaderships in Akwa Ibom. It is only when we have such crop of leaders that serious discussions on the direction of our country can be promoted. This journey to world class in Akwa Ibom can be halted by the choice of a bad governor. All the accolades we pay today to your past leaders can be obliterated in a twinkle of an eye if we don't achieve a statewide consensus on the choice of your next governor. Your next governor must owe you a gratitude of an endorsement. He must feel that he owes the state accountability and continuity by the overwhelming endorsements he gets across party lines. The campaign expenses must be so reduced that his IOUs would not limit his capacity for correct decisions. The accomplishments of today must be the stepping stones of the journey to world class. On the need for peace and cohesion in Akwa Ibom, I want to say to you that no progress can come without peace. No peace can exist in an atmosphere of rancor, bitterness, debauchery, violence, and lack of godliness. Government must promote and encourage reconciliation at all times. We disagree to agree. Our differences should be restricted on strategies and not be allowed to degenerate to lack of accommodation. Without peace, progress is unachievable. Finally, in Proverbs, the extant document of Hebrews wisdom, often attributed to King Solomon, chapter 3, verses 5 to 6 says, and I quote, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, submit to him, and he will make your paths straight." With these few words, I commit Akwa Ibom's journey to world class in the hands of our Lord Jesus Christ. Thank you for your kind attention.
Your Excellencies, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that gentleman schooled at both the University of Ibadan and the London School of Economics and Political Science. And of course, we've listened to him and the angle in which he took the lecture from, practically asking if Akwa Ibom, with all of the things we've done, can actually get itself rid of the challenges that bedevil Nigeria. A very important question. There are a few things he didn't mention, which I think with the benefits of having foreknowledge of who he is, I can add. The first is that he won that particular election in the University of Ibadan. He won that election. He couldn't have spoken that amount of grammar and they did not vote for him. and he became the first non-native to win that particular election in the University of Ibadan. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I think we've enjoyed the lecture. Can we please put our hands together one more time for Chief John Nwodo? There are some aspects of that lecture that have interested people. When he was talking about the driverless cars and the fact that he's had personal experience, he said the car recognizes traffic stops, traffic lights, drives you to the destination and parks itself. As an MC, when lectures are presented, I love to sit in the audience because it's like sitting in the popular side of a football match. You get to hear a lot of things. Somebody said, those things work there. There is no keke and Allah lock in that place. Because we're wondering whether it can recognize Allah lock and keke. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please one more time put your hands together for Chief John Nwodo. Thank you very much. We're going to take just 2-3 minutes. We didn't want to follow up the lecture with the discussion, but this performance is only going to take about 5 minutes. And then we're going to take perspective from our discussants. Of course, there will be brief perspectives. The lecture is a long one. These will be individual perspectives, even as we brainstorm on the topic, Akwa Ibom, the journey to world class. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, for those of us who are sitting here, a good number of us have achieved one thing or the other. There are people in different stages of life. But it is the ones that look up to us, the ones that are our children. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the the lecture is being distributed. You may wish to get a copy if you want. The one that was published was the first draft, but then of course the guest lecturer added some, and then of course we're sharing that in case somebody wants. You may want to fill up the missing spaces. The people to whom we owe a responsibility of living a better state, the ones we call the leaders of tomorrow. The ones who have accused the generation of the guest lecturer of having obliterated their future by the choices that they have made. These are the ones that we must ensure that we live a better Akwa Ibom. The representatives from that generation are going to entertain us. And I want to please request that we put our hands together for the Marian kids as they entertain us. Please put your hands together for them. Thank you. Thank you very much. Please put your hands together for the Marian kids. Thank you very, very much. Thank you very, very much. Please, we'll ask the directors to quickly clear the stage of the instruments so that we can set up for those who will make up the panel discussions. A brief session is going to be. We do not want to take the interventions one after the other. Please put your hands together for them. Put your hands together for them. Thank you very much. We're going to have a panel so that we can save the much needed time. And of course, I'm sure that we're going to listen to and get insights and perspectives on this topic, Akwa Ibom, the journey to world class. We want to thank all of you. We thank His Excellency the Governor. We thank the Chairman, who of course is directing these proceedings. And we are going to invite members of the panel in not too long a time. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to request that we also follow through with the remaining programs to mark the 35th anniversary of the state. In the meantime, to set the stage for that discussion, let me ask the brass band to give us a very brief interlude. Thank you. Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, a very eminent selection of some of the finest sons and daughters of Akwa Ibom. And I think it is very instructive that we had a guest lecturer who is not an indigene of the state, but a friend, a lover, an admirer, a promoter of the state. The discussants, of course, are those who come from here, those who, of course, wear the shoe, and if there is any pain, they are the first people who will tell us. Let me invite, without any further ado, their profiles are ready in the program. The first, the Right Honorable Barrister Norfolk Luke, Chairman, House of Representatives Committee on Judiciary. Can we please put our hands together for him? Thank you. Seated next to him, Miss Otobong Tom. Please put your hands together for her. She comes up here. Thank you very much. And of course, Professor Valerie Solomon of the University of Uyo. Please put your hands together for them. Thank you very much. Mr. Usen Udo, please put your hands together for him. Thank you very much. And last but not the least, Commissioner for Information, Akwa Ibom State, Comrade Ini Ememabong. Please put your hands together for them. Thank you very, very much. Thank you very, very much. We are going to have all 5 of them on stage as against having them one after the other so that we do not have to spend too much time here on this particular one. Of course, I have been asked to serve as moderator, and I hope that we're going to be done with this session in not too long a time. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I think it's balanced enough for us to give a round of applause, another round of applause. Thank you. The Right Honorable Barrister Onofio Kliuk, son of Akwa Ibom, having lived here almost all your life, worked here, and schooled here, and practically been everything here. I would want to start with you, sir. I'm having listened to the guest lecturer on the topic, Akwa Ibom, the journey to world class. I'm very sure I saw you listening with rapt attention, sir. I'd love to have what your intervention, what's your inputs, what your contribution to that discussion should be, sir. We'll start with you, please.
Thank you very much, Rav. We thank God Almighty, Your Excellencies, invited guest. I want to thank the state government in the first instance for the recognition and the honor done me to be a panelist in a part of event to celebrate the 35th anniversary of the state. And I can remember vividly at the 30th anniversary, I was honored as the only youth with a state award. So I don't take this for granted. Thank you, and I appreciate the governor and the entire government. I listened to Professor Nyawodo, and I would pick a few things that I will speak on as my intervention here. And I would combine that with the thought that were expressed by the chairman of the planning committee, that's the Honorable Dr. Emmanuel Ekoem. I will start my thought from the fact that if you don't know where you are coming from, if you don't have an appraisal of where you are, and you cannot make a good projection to where you are going to. And so permit me to buttress that point to read a document signed, a document that is dated the 25th day of February 1978, signed by 11 paramount rulers. And if time will permit, I read, "We, the paramount rulers and traditional chiefs, on behalf of ourselves and the people who inhabit that area of the Cross River State, known as the mainland area, have considered the need for balanced and even development of our fatherland through the creation of another state out of the present Cross River State. We hereby pray the federal military government, through the Constituent Assembly, now producing a constitution for Nigeria, to approve the creation of a state to be known and reflected in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as Akwa Ibom State. The state with a population of about 4 million people," permit me to jump that, and then the numbers of local government that were mentioned. But specifically, for those of us here in this hall, the next paragraph, which reviews the idea about the creation of the state. "We further resolve that the headquarters of the new state be located in the landmass which lies between Uyo, Abak, and Eten headquarters. The name of the new headquarters will be," okay, they said Ibom, "the ancestral home of the entire mainland communities. Now, we, the traditional rulers," this is why I'm reading this, "we, the traditional rulers, wish to leave a legacy for our children which will ensure and enhance development, national stability, and easy maintenance of law and order. We are confident that the creation of Akwa Ibom State will give a further opportunity to the Calabar and Ogoja people for further development in a separate state of their own, with the Cross River as the natural boundary between the two states." Thank you. So I'm saying this to say that we need to understand why our forefathers fought for the creation of the state, and that has been re-echoed by our guest lecturer. And I want to speak to another point, which is, having gotten a state, what has been the contribution of our leaders over the years past? God has blessed us, whether by appointive or by elective positions. Our previous leaders have made contributory efforts, serious effort at the development of the state, starting from the first governor who came here. Now, I might not be able to speak so much on those who superintended over the state before 1999, because from 1999, I had the opportunity from a matured perspective to observe firsthand the development of the state. So history books show us that every leader has contributed, and I thank God for those who acted what they acted here, but clearly I would fill in the little gaps that were not filled in that acting that we have done here. Why am I saying so? Why am I saying so? We might do it today, to please the present governor, when he's gone, we'll do the same thing to him. And so let's correct everything while we are here alive, because the way we treat our past leaders would give our present leaders the enablement either to serve us well or serve themselves. And that matters a lot. And so, example to prove the point of what our leaders have done using 1999 for an instance, and using certain parameters. Please permit me. Let me start with His Excellency Akwa Ibom Victor Otta. He had the understanding, because I'm talking about where we are coming from, where we are, to make a projections to where we are going to. Now, he had understanding that we are a state bordering at the Atlantic Ocean. And so, we are not a pedestrian state where people would probably branch in the course of traveling. And so, he needed to put a conscious, he knew that for people to come to the state, you must go there as a destination of choice. You don't just go to a destination of choice if you don't have the necessary infrastructure. So, he sat down and drew the master plan that will make the state a destination of choice. First, he knew that when the investors come, they will need where to sleep. That is where we are today, Ibom Lo Meridian. And the subsequent government, His Excellency, that of His Excellency Governor Godswill Akpabio, came and completed this Lo Meridian. And today, Governor Odongre Bello-Emmanuel, if you walk on the hallway of Lo Meridian, you've seen a whole lot of infrastructural renaissance. And then it has been given into some other set of people to manage. And that means that every administration has come to keep a building block on the foundation that was laid. That is in the area of tourism. Then he knew that we cannot become an industrialized nation without power. His Excellency Akwa Ibom Victor Otta keyed into the constitutional amendment that gave opportunities for state to generate powers, came with the idea of Ibom Power Plant. And by the grace of God, we were able to have a power plant. We got the first turbine, because he knew that we were going to be an industrial hub. And so the next thing was the coming of His Excellency Godswill Akpabio. What did he do? He bought the second turbine for that Ibom power plant, and then sought for an effort to increase the power generation from about 195 to I think about 600 and something megawatt. And then Governor Udom has come, still furthering the ambition of the past administration, came with power for all, had a power plant in Ekem, in Mkparen, in local government area, extended the frontiers of power like the power station that we have in 4-lane. And then he's doing power for all to make sure that every communities are linked to the power grid. That is knowing where we were, where we are, and where we are going to. And let's take education. Governor Victor Otta came with the free and compulsory education. Governor Godswill Akpabio leveraged on it by paying subvention to every school head, per pupil, per student. And then Governor Odongre Bello-Emmanuel has continued with that, built infrastructure, and then consolidating on the free and compulsory education. That is an area of critical thinking, and then following up with what our leaders have done. Agriculture, integrated farmer scheme of His Excellency Akwa Ibom Victor Otta, then sustained by the government of His Excellency Governor Godswill Akpabio, and then Governor Odongre Bello-Emmanuel brought a revolution in agriculture, in the sense that the things that we could not think that we could cultivate here, that he brought it, and then we could cultivate like tomatoes, like onions, and like potatoes. And these are what I could call the indices to show where we are, where we were, where we are, and where we are going to. I believe that time will give us opportunity for us to make projections on where we should be as a world-class state. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the Right Honorable Barrister Nofio Gliuk. Maybe I shouldn't have started with a politician, but then he is here, and the issue, of course, has got to do with a lot of politics. I'll move over to Mr. Tobong Tom, seated to his right, a lawyer, a partner at Lancaster Legal, and of course, a daughter of Akwa Ibom State, a well-traveled one for that matter. Akwa Ibom, the journey to world class. Having listened to that lecture, you think we're making the direction, are we on the right direction to that world-class destination vision that all of us do have?
Thank you very much. Your Excellencies and every distinguished lady and gentlemen present here today. Thank you for this opportunity. It is a first for me. Yes, I have shared stages, at different levels, but at the state level, this is the first time for me, so it is an honor. Thank you. In considering, I did make notes, so I'm going to refer to my notes. In considering the journey to world class, like, the guest speaker said, and also my fellow panelists said, we must assess where we are. And I won't spend time maybe talking about, how we got here. I believe the legacies actually speak, for themselves. However, I will consider the key focus areas of the current administration, which I found striking. I would list them, about 8 of them that I identified. 1 was industrialization. 2, aviation development. 3, small and medium-scale enterprises. 4, security. 5, infrastructure. 6, agriculture. 7, human capital development. And then 8, rural and riverine area development. Now, there is no gainsaying that there is noticeable development in some, or maybe all of these areas. But remarkably, I would talk about two areas, which is aviation development. Now, today, Ibom Air is considered, in my opinion, one of the best airlines in the country, in terms of service delivery, timely flight scheduling, and also dependability. Now, what I find striking is the huge investments in industrialization. Now, if we must achieve development results, world class in this case, then the need for human capacity development cannot be overemphasized. Now, why is, you would ask, why is capacity development important? It is because people are assets and we must invest in them. Now, if we develop our own, then it would minimize, let's say, like an over-reliance on outside experts as sources of knowledge, resources, and solutions to community issues. It wouldn't just do that, it would also maybe encourage indigenous people to take action on local issues themselves, which kind of fosters a sense of ownership, responsibility, and empowerment. Now, how can we achieve this? The first thing I would like to talk about is we must learn from the best and implement religiously. Now, learning from the best, we have to learn from countries whose high literacy level has resulted in abundant human capital. We're talking about world class. World class is not average. World class isn't regular. I personally have embarked on my own journey to world class as a young Nigerian, black West African, black girl traveling with a West African passport. It is not the most favorable circumstances. Like my father, he doesn't get it, he still says, oh, he doesn't get it, But my mom, on the other hand, she understands the vision, and so she has made peace with it. I have traveled across now 5 continents of the world, and even though some of my travels, even though some of it have been for studies and, let's say, work, most of it has been, to just to travel and learn more about the culture and then people. So most of it has been tourism. And then,
if I make an input from the travels that you've had, and I'm sure you've been to destinations in different parts, how would you compare how we're doing?
I'm getting there.
Okay, yes.
I'm getting there. Now, the future is service-oriented. And from my travels, I have found that the difference, we may be diverse in our looks and our cultures, but we're all basically the same. And so the difference, if we must attain world-class, service is important. And how do you improve people to the point where they can provide this service? It is true capacity development.
Okay, so we're going to get back to you, but let me take a perspective from Mr. Usen Udo. We've listened to the politician, we've listened to the corporate lawyer. Let us listen to the engineer turned management consultant, son of Akwa Ibom State, and one who a good number of people will remember from the Education Summit 2 years ago, where he came to scare us with the jobs that we're not going to have again in another few years. Mr. Usen Udo, Akwa Ibom, the journey to world class. How far so far?
Thank you very much, Ralph. His Excellency, I'd like to seek your indulgence to stand on existing protocol because of time. My fellow discussants, you've actually teed this up nicely. Chief, thank you very much for your keynote address. This has been really, it's really teed up the conversation for us. What comes to mind when we say Akwa Ibom, the journey to world class? The first question that comes to my mind is, when you say world class and you put Akwa Ibom in the same sentence with world class, what image comes to your head? What is world class? When you're talking about cities and you talk about world class, what mental picture comes to your head? Now, what is
driverless cars, if you were to ask me?
Well, driverless cars, but let me just make it very easy because of time. Actually, cities have indicators that define whether they are world class or not. It is not a wish. It is not by prayers. It's science. Okay? What are the indicators? There's something called the Global City Index. The Global City Index basically measures 5 things: the business activities, the human capital, and you spoke nicely about human capital. You're actually absolutely spot on about that. The stability, healthcare, culture and environment, education, infrastructure. When you talk about infrastructure, we are talking about the number of houses, we are talking about transportation, public infrastructure, toilets, drainage. When you talk about education, it's public and private education, and our guest speaker spoke quite eloquently about the need to get your education right. When you talk about culture and environment, there you're talking about how your people behave. You're talking about corruption. When you talk about healthcare, you know what that means. Stability is obviously security. So back to my starting question. When you say Akwa Ibom, journey to world class, what image comes to your head? Now, we must always start from our achievements, and we have so many reasons to be proud. And I like what honorary speaker said, and I like the correction you made. That correction is crucial. But we should acknowledge the achievements of our past administration and also the current administration in this respect. When you say things like, I mean, you know today that before you travel 60 minutes from any location in Akwa Ibom, you will get some decent healthcare. Today. 60 minutes from any location. Very careful about using world class. Of building a city of note, the basic infrastructure is there. So credit has to be given appropriately. This session itself that we are having is an indication that we do realize that there is a lot of work to be done. And that is an indication. But before you go on, let me say, where have they done this before? Where has this been done before? Where have cities been built from nothing to world class? And how did they do it? Many of you talk about Dubai. Dubai actually existed as an entity, well, about 3,000 years before Christ. Dubai had existed 3,000 years before Christ. 1,000 years before Christ, Dubai was actually swamp, was a desert. It has settlements all around it. It was a trade zone, a route where they were trading in textile, gold, and rubies. That's what Dubai was. Until 1966, when oil was discovered. But guess what? It wasn't the oil that was discovered in Dubai that developed Dubai. It was the vision of the late Sheikh Rashid bin Said. It was his vision. It wasn't the oil. And what was his vision? He said, I would like to build a city that would thrive on three things only. I want a city that will be called a city of wonder, a city of innovation, and a city of opportunities. Wonder, innovation, opportunities, period. That was it. Oil was an enabler. In fact, he made it very clear that oil is something they're going to move away from. And guess what has happened? Today, the best tech ops are in Dubai.
Okay, I think that's a good place to leave it for you, Mr. Usanodo. We're going to come back. Let me get to the professor, Professor Valerie Solomon, who also has a perspective as somebody who lives and works here, as somebody, of course, who has also had to work outside this country. Usain has raised some issues, some posers about the definition of what world class is or what world class should be. Having listened and from your own point of view, how well are we faring in getting to the points that he has raised?
Thank you very much. Your Excellency and the chairman of this planning
Please, can we give her some more volume, please?
I want to say thank you for the opportunity to be here. Well, looking at where we are, or where we are coming from, where we are, or where we are going to, I'm not going to go back to say what the other panelists have said already. But my idea of a world-class state is a place where there's gender parity, where you have equal opportunity for male and for female. World-class state, a world-class economy. We are talking about a place where you have equal opportunity for both male and female. Equal opportunity in decision making, in deciding how the cake is being shared. Who takes what? Not when you finish making the decision, it's a women leader, come and take. That's not what we are talking about. Then going to the lecture, one of the things the lecturer mentioned, which actually struck my attention as a farmer, is that Nigeria is one of the largest producers of tomato, of this and all of that. Yet we are the biggest importer. Of the so there's a disconnect between our production and the process, the finished product. So as a state, we need to invest more in the area of the value chain. The agricultural value chain. We need to invest more on that. And the truth is, it is in agriculture that you find low-hanging fruits. So when you're building your big Dakada houses, you're building syringe houses, oil mills and all of that, and it's taking time. Most of these projects come in phases, Agriculture will provide the low-hanging fruit for the ordinary citizens like us to be able to eat. Because the hungry man is what? The angry man, okay? So when we are hungry, no matter how big the dream is, we'll not be able to see it, we'll not be able to flow with you. So one of the things we could do as a state to make sure that we actually get to where we are going to is to make sure that we have low-hanging fruits. Look at us now. The federal government refused to pay lecturers for the past 7 months. But so many of us are farmers. I get most of the things I eat from my farm. I farm myself in front of my house. I have, right now I have about 150 stands of yam in bags and all of that. So with agriculture, I'm sure that this state will get to where it's supposed to get to.
I think it's a good place for the professor. And just in case you did not know, she's a professor of agric sociology and gender studies, which is why she started on that gender note. And let me please more or less explain so that the chairman of the CPC is not held accountable by Prof for having on this table now 4 men and 2 women. The original moderator was supposed to be a woman, please. I'm only standing in. So I'm standing here as a woman, just so that we can actually achieve that gender parity. Okay, let me come to Comrade Ini Ebababong, Commissioner for Information. Working integrally with the current government, of course in touch with the previous administrations also, and of course having listened to the initial thoughts and the perspective of our panelists on this journey to world class, would you say that especially with the indicators that Usain raised, would you say that we are really on a journey to world class?
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies, the chairman of the session. I must appreciate the guest lecturer for a very wonderful lecture he's presented. But before I go there, let me start by taking responsibility on behalf of government, because I sit here. I take full responsibility for the omissions, and I like to state that those were omissions, not commission. No harm was intended. I spoke to the gentleman who conducted that drama series, and he's apologized extensively and has taken note of those things. I apologize, please. Having said so, the first thing, like my brother Hussein said, in people make places, when we talk about Akwa Ibom, we are directly talking about not just the landmass, we are talking about the people who populate the place. Because I did think that if you take people from the United States of America, put them in one fallow bush, they will turn that place to the United States of America. But if you take people from somewhere else and put them in America, they will turn that place where they are to where they are coming from. That's why they say that you can take a man out of the barracks, but you cannot take a barracks out of the man. So more importantly, which is why at the outset of this administration, the government started with attitudinal change, mindset shift with the Dakada philosophy. And it is something I hope that successive administrations would move away from seeing who did it, but seeing the content of what has been done. We must come to the point where we talk about identity as people. I sit as an Akwa Ibom person, and the question I ask myself is, what is the definition of an Akwa Ibom person in Nigeria? Who are we? Who do we think we are? Who do others see us as? Who do we want to be? Now, in the calibration of the differences, if we discover, and even for us, you know that it is critical for you to find out how you are perceived. In case you belong to the set of people who say, I do what I do and I don't care about how others perceive me. Jesus Christ asked his disciples, he said, who do men say I am? And drawing closer, ask them, who do you say I am? Therefore, the identity crisis that we face in the country today is something that this administration started with, to say, who is an Akwa Ibomite? What are the aspirational dispositions of the Akwa Ibomite? Who do we think we are, which is different from, which may be far cry from who we want to be, which is now world class. And like Hussein said, 50 years in between, a young son, the current ruler of Dubai, goes with his father to negotiate with the British people. And he lands with his father in Heathrow. And he's amazed at the number of planes that are flying all over. And he sits back with his father. And as they go back, he asks his father, do you ever think our country shall be like this? His father said, in your lifetime, our country will be greater than them. 50 years after, a report comes out and shows that Dubai airport is busier than Heathrow. That is the power of vision. And so vision must sit on fertile minds. It is not about the infrastructure. Build every infrastructure and do not build a man who will use the infrastructure. He converts the infrastructure to stupidity. And therefore, the building of man becomes very necessary. We draw attention to the part of education which he talked about. Clearly, the decline and deterioration in the education, what education offers. My father said to me that immediately you see an educated man, he needs no introduction. But sincerely, when we look at our children, when we look at ourselves, when we look at our environment, educated people now need introduction. And how do they introduce themselves? They introduce themselves with a lot of titles before. And I saw the guest lecturer, no title, but his education introduced him. Now, but you now see, you see that the absence of education has now made, we're not talking about education, we're not talking about knowledge, we're not talking about what people know, we're talking about certification. And a certificated society is not an educated society, because education flows from within. And therefore, the administration currently, building on what past administrations had done, and incidentally in this state, we have been lucky by stroke of happenstance, which is why one of the things we would have to address in the march and journey to world class is the fact that immediately you are where you're going on a journey, you begin to ask yourself, how long is that journey? You ask yourself, what do I need for that journey? And therefore, we must make the leadership recruitment and selection process a very deliberate process. We must not have leaders emerge by happenstance. We have been lucky to have leaders by happenstance. emerge who did well for us. But for how long happenstance will be. And I seem to think that God is an Akwa Ibomite. Because in the lineup of leadership, especially those who have been indigenous, you're going to find how Otuekon Odonsinka came and did what he had to do. That there was no leadership solution. His Excellency the Deputy Governor was a pioneer commissioner for information. And in our administration kept crying that, look, we need basic infrastructure. But then people said there was no money. But someone came who had a desire to put things on ground. Sankara did his. Obon Akpan did his. A very aggressive person in conduct and in everything came and announced that he arrived here with anger. And with anger he was going to execute. And you saw that he did it. Governor Odom Emmanuel, a good and excellent manager of human and material resources, arrived at a time when we were lacking money. Play any of them out of their season, none would have done as well as they did. But now the question is, what did we look out in this leadership in selecting them? It was politics. None of them emerged because we love them so much. And if you check the process that brought the consensus of Obangota, you would know that the politicians of that era didn't want him. If you check and see the politics that brought His Excellency Chief Godswill Oboro-Kpabio, you would know that on the PDP principle of 50 and 1, he didn't make it, meaning the politicians of that era didn't want it. If you check and discover the concentric cycles of political analysis and events that brought Governor Odom Emmanuel, you see the politicians didn't want it. So now the question is, what if we had allowed politics and politicians to select? Would we have had them? So we now have to develop a model that will clearly state out, what are we looking for in leadership? Leaders must not just emerge, they mustn't emerge from the skies. It is a process of training. It's a process of exposure so that we know the caliber of people who are going to put the destinies of our children into their hands. We must be able to do that.
Honorable Commissioner, I think your point has been very well taken. And I'm beginning to wonder why we have so many lawyers on the panel. You know they never stop talking, sir. And the good thing is that I think we're getting somewhere. Let me move to another lawyer. And I want to please request, all of us have had an opportunity of stating our initial thoughts. So we'll try as much as possible to limit our subsequent contributions to about 2 minutes or thereabouts so that we can round up this session in such a time. I'll come to you, Otto. You spoke a lot about human capacity development. And when this, the topic, the journey to world class was chosen, of course, one of the reasons why you were brought on the panel is that because of the work that you do as a travel blogger, you've been to, according to you, 5 continents, and only God knows how many places. So you've seen the world, and you've seen maybe an idea of world class. You spoke about human capacity development. Following through from that, and of course from what the Honorable Commissioner and others have spoken in that same direction, what would be, as brief as possible, the things we need to do? Why do we need to build enough human capacity in our journey to world class? Otto.
Thank you very much. Like I said, the importance of human capacity development cannot be overemphasized, because if we have invested so much in industrialization, we need the people to actually continue and maybe develop on it and just achieve developmental results. Now, if we have, for example, the airport, the international airport, that we have there. If you go to most airports that rank top on the list of, the best airports in the world, it's because of service. It's because of the facility, So the service is, the future is service-oriented. You need people to drive the services. And who are these people? They're mostly the youth. The youth is our greatest asset. So we need to develop these people. Now, are we there yet? The obvious answer is no. But are we in the right direction? Certainly. Because a case study, let's say Ethiopia. Right now, today, we know Ethiopia is like the commercial hub, like the connecting hub in Africa through Ethiopian Airlines. You have Ethiopian Airlines that goes everywhere, most countries of the world, Far East, North America, Europe. Now, just by, having that structure, just by developing in aviation, you would find that Ethiopian Airline, has also developed the city. I would tell, for example, if you're traveling from Lagos to Addis Ababa, most likely your connecting flight to another country would be the next day. Now, what happens is that Ethiopian Airlines would give you a complimentary hotel. So what do? These airlines partner with local businesses and hotels. And of course, we know how little drops, would help the economy. So I think we must invest in people, because the people are, especially the youth, are the major drivers of the economy.
Thank you very much. I think excellent points raised there. The Right Honorable Barrister Odnafiok-Liu. Good historical analysis, Akwa Ibom journey to world class. Our panelists have defined world class. And in our conversation, we're very mindful of gender issues because of Professor Solomon. And what would you think? Somebody once said that in Nigeria, we're excellent at analyzing problems. We know what the problem is. Can we begin to look at solutions? What are the things, in your opinion, that are hampering our journey to world class? And what do you think we can do to achieve that?
Thank you. I will answer that question with a link to a statement that was made by the keynote speaker. He said, when he started the lecture, he took us through the problem of Nigeria, and right on my seat, I was wondering, we were asking him to come and talk about Akwa Ibom, and he's talking about Nigeria. Until he now linked it up to what he wanted to say, which was quite apt, that you cannot be a world class amidst the 36 or 37 federating unit alone. And I want to show you a clear instance where that has happened to us. Until we make some amendment within our political system, we'll continue to suffer this fate. Government should permit me to say this. We have had leaders who have made effort to develop the deep sea port. Issues of seaport development lies within the exclusive legislative list of the federal government. You cannot do that without the federal government approval. And so every of our efforts have been almost challenged. Instead, they go to give seaport in places that don't have original draft. We had original draft of 17 meters without dredging. And so that is a clear point of a hindrance to our going to world class because of the nature of the political configuration of the country which we find ourselves. So number one, we've tried it. We tried in the last constitutional amendment to try to see how we can unbundle the federal government, bring in certain issues that are in the exclusive legislative list, like power, transmission, like issues of seaport, maritime development, so that state government can legislate on it. So no matter how we continue to talk about deep sea port, if the federal government does not support us, it would be an exercise in futility. So the other one is, I want to align with the issue of human development. We have, this is on a little political note, and then it's on a lighter note. While I was seeking for the office of the governor, going consulting, until I prayed to become the prefect. I was not the prefect. And I went to the governor. I said, I'm from your federal, I'm your in-law. The governor said, the prefect is equally an in-law of the senatorial district. I said, I'm from Surubium. He said, the prefect is equally from Surubium. So I didn't have any other option again. So while I was on that journey, I said, we have built infrastructure that has thrown up opportunities. All what we need to do is to build human capacity to fill in those opportunities. Number one, sir. Let's talk about the aviation sector, even the deep sea port, sir. We should not wait until the materialization of this deep sea port before we begin to look at the manpower needs of this infrastructure that is coming to train the people. I love what one of our lady was doing. I don't know, Otobo Aquila. A certain, is it Keynote or so? They went and discovered the manpower need of certain industries and then publish it online for our young people to know that this is the area that we are going to be going in the future. So people should go to educate themselves on this purpose. Why do I say this? LNG Train 7 needed almost 300 quality assurance engineers. Most of the gas for LNG Train 7 comes from our backyard here in Esreke, Ibno. Unfortunately, the recruitment that was done, we could not find up to 10 Akwa Ibom sons or daughters who had qualifications as quality assurance engineers in LNG Train 7. We accuse other parts of the country of nepotism and chronism, but they do it with merit. They saw that LNG Train 7 was going to come 5 years back. They sent their children to UK and US to train in the areas that LNG Train 7 would be needing manpower. And so what we need to do is, let us partner with government. Today, we thank God for what the governor is doing, like the bringing investors, OCP of Morocco, what do they call this? These people that came in gas plant in Eastern Obolo.
Sterling.
Yes. I want to please plead. Let the government begin. The guy in charge of OCP Morocco, the country officer, is my classmate in Lotran High School, Otue Konkelebuso. I had a meeting in Abuja. I said, please, what are you going to be needing in the future so that we can now support our children on scholarship, so that when the OCP project is on ground, we are not having other people. We accept other people to come and build our state, but we need to be sufficiently equipped. The other one, sir, another intervention will go forward. When I was working in here, I saw the chairman of local government, I saw vice chairman, I saw the leaders of the legislative council. This is a very good way to start. Politics has taken a whole lot of things that we are doing that we have lost sight of development. And so you cannot develop if you don't have intellectual capacity. And I thank God that that row that I saw them is still filled up. That means that they are still seated here. If you want to develop to a world class, you must develop the intellectual capacity of both your political class and your business class. And there has to be a synergy. There has to be a synergy. In this hall, sir, in 2019, when I was the speaker, with the support of government, we trained councillors. And I said something. The aim was that at every point in time, that Akwa Ibom should not lack the leaders who will sit on the table of Nigeria and talk eloquently and then talk boldly, courageously to bring development back home. And that is what we are seeing here that Governor Odom is doing, continuing the era of Governor Victor Otta, and the rest of other leaders. Then to buttress the point that she has made, sir, there has to be a deliberate effort at ICT. World class without high-speed internet is a problem. There has to be a partnership with some agencies so that we can have a solid fiber optic infrastructure. Bring it from the Atlantic Ocean and get our people to work here. The Hanson, I will continue to mention it, the Hanson Johnsons of this world, the Root Hops, the Manasses of Future Labs of this world are doing great things. But there has to be a conscious effort by us as government and as individuals to be able to congregate them and then give them the enabling tools. I appreciate the laptop given to the 3,000
Ibom 3,000.
Ibom 3,000. But we need to move beyond that. How do we have a government hub in the line of what Obong Otta was trying to do, which is the science park. Let me stop there for now.
Thank
until
you
I come
I was just about to stop you because, Prof, yes, issues that have got to do with world class. You raised the gender sensitive issues, and of course, I think it is a very critical point. Because there are even indications sometimes that even dealing with women and some of these issues brings faster results. You know, somebody was talking the other day that when you give a woman money, that money gets to the whole family. When you give a man money, some of that money just ends in the bar, just right there. I don't know if it's true. I'm not the one who said it. But, sorry, is it true, sir? I'm not the one who said it. I'm not the one who said it. So, Prof, as we begin to round off with our interventions, you are from this state. I want us to not just necessarily look at problems also, but also begin to proffer solutions. What do you think are the steps we should take in the directions that you think we should also take so that we can achieve this world-class status?
Thank you very much. Before I talk about gender, I want to add a little to what the previous speakers have said concerning the issue of training, human capital development. For instance, I know that in Akwa Ibom State, I think we've been given the right, this airspace management. We have in Nigeria, the hub for airspace management in this whole country is in Nigeria. How many of our people are trained? How many of our people have the capability to be able to work in that office when it starts? How many air control officers do we have? So as we are having visions, we also have to think of who are the people that are going to run with this vision? Who are the people that are going to man this thing? What do we need to do? So we need to put that in place. He had mentioned the science park. I wanted to talk about that. Those are some of the things that we need to do to be able to prepare our young ones to take those opportunities. Then coming to the issue of gender, what do we need to do? We need, for me, I think what the area we need to do is to go into is intentional parenting. Intentional parenting, you know. The Honorable Commissioner talked about Dakada. Dakada shouldn't just start from up, from the youth. Dakada should be from the home. As women, how are you bringing up your children? Are you making your male child to feel superior to your female child? Or are you giving your male and your female children, the mindset that they are equal? Are you telling your female child you can be governor, you can be president, or you're telling the female child that you can be governor's wife? Why should I be a governor's wife and not a governor, for goodness sake? You know? Why? Why should I be the president's wife and not the president's? Why should I be the local government chairman's wife and not the local government chairman myself? You know? So I'm talking about intentional parenting. From the word go, from the time your child is born, from the time you start calling the child, you come and pound pepper for me. Make it clear that both the male and the female child can pound pepper. Both the male and the female child can be presidents. Both the male and the female child can be whatever they want to be. So that's where these children go out. They grow up with this mindset, with a world-class mindset, not a talk mentality, you know. So the female children will not think there are certain things that are off limits. So when you call meetings and you want them to discuss, and then all the men will be so expressive, they'll be talking and, you know, saying the things they want to say. Then the female child will just stay and keep quiet. Then whatever you people say is okay. Who says? Who says whatever you say is okay? Don't you have a mind of your own? Don't you have what you want? You know? So for me, one solution from the gender perspective is intentional parenting, which will help to deconstruct our gender mindset and make it, you know, give everybody an equal mindset. Thank you.
I think we can put our hands together for the Prof. Thank you. Equal opportunities for our children. I love to say, when they say pound pepper, both of them, the female children should also learn to start generator. They should also learn motor and all that. I agree. I agree with you.
You know, I agree with you.
I'm agreeing with you, Prof.
I remember, see, there was a particular day I was driving and my car had an issue. I just stopped, opened the bonnet. There were men around. They thought I was going to call them to ask for help. I opened the bonnet, looked at the car. I knew the problem was the battery head. Carried something, hit the battery head, started my car, the car started moving. You know? So if a female child can drive a car, let the female child also know how to change the tire, know how to check the engine before you leave. The same thing. As a male child, if you can eat, you'll be able to cook what you can eat. That's just what I'm saying.
Thank you very much, Prof. I agree with you. 100%, I agree with you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please, any day your car has a problem, I'll give you Prof's office number so that you can reach her. Mr. Usen Udo, you raised some interesting perspective. You talked about the fact that we need to be able to even define what we mean when we talk about world class. And there are, of course, indicators that show world class. Prescriptions, based on these indicators, based on this knowledge, what would you do? What would you advise that we did?
Ralph, thanks a lot. I come from the private sector. You get paid for what you deliver. Not for passion, not for saying the right things, not for coming up with ideas spontaneously. I told you the story of Dubai, and my brother here, the commissioner, added to it. I could have told you the story about Istanbul. Every single place you've seen people achieve building world-class cities, it hasn't been from coming up with brilliant ideas on the spur. It never works that way. You have to have a vision. That vision must be backed up by a clear plan, and you execute the plan. That plan transcends politics, it transcends leader and seasons. That's how you build cities. Cities are not built in one tenor. We've talked about Akwa Ibom, a journey to world class. We've talked about the plan that Obama put in place. In this hall, you are the elites of Akwa Ibom. How many of you know the plan that Obama put in place? Show of hand. 2 people. Only 2. 3. Can 3, can 5, can 6, can 10 of you power the city, power the town? Can you power Akwa Ibom? Let me tell you, you know, there was an example that was raised here that, oh, if you did something, people would contribute. Let me ask you a question. If you knew, if you had a 10 by 10, 10 meter by 10 meter plan of Akwa Ibom State that showed how the commercial nodes have been linked together by dual roads, that shows how light train has been used to link all of our commercial nerves, that shows where the industries are going to come up, where the schools will be, where the green will be, and shows you that this will be done in 10 years, this will be done in 15 years. Oron will be like this in 25 years. What will you do if you had spare cash? As a commercial-minded person, as somebody who is intelligent, you will take positions. You will take 25-year positions. You will go to Oron, where I don't know how much they sell land now, and take 25-year positions there. You will build and buy closer to those and make those investments. Who is making that? Is that government or you? And when you put those investments in place, are you growing the place or not? Would you attract more people into this space? That is how mega cities are built. It's not built on passion. It's built on a clear vision that people know. Every child growing up has somewhere they can go to. They have a museum they can go to, and they see what Akwa Ibom would look like in 30 years. And they can take positions. When I say take positions, most of you would think of positions in terms of land. But take positions also in terms of skill. I said it the last conversation I had. It is what I do for the nation. It's what I do in several other places. It's my career. It's what I've done for 30 years. The skills you are all clamoring to build in your children today are going to be obsolete by the time the kids are out of school. You're wasting money. The education you are giving to your children today, immediately they graduate, those things are obsolete. If you could see a 30-year plan, you could take a position for a 30-year. And then you can begin to develop the skills that are absolutely relevant. But you can't take those positions because you don't know the vision and you clearly don't know where it's going. We can come up with spontaneous ideas. Oh, it's beautiful, we can do this, we can do that, we can do this, we can add this. The moment you move out of there, the next person comes up with his own wonderful ideas. 15 wonderful ideas. All of them sound fantastic. But they don't, we just hope that in future they will just come together and somehow create a world-class city. It doesn't work like that. If you ask me one single thing you should do when you step out of this place, create a tank team of people, bring all the mastermind, the eggheads, all the people with the great ideas, bring every single people into a room, do me a scale, draw for me what Akwa Ibom would look like in 30 years, in 25 years. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be a vision. And then it begins to develop out, it begins to blow out. You begin to show me where the infrastructure will be. You begin to show me where the health will be, where the different, even when you haven't figured out where the doctors will come from, show me where you intend to position those health centers. Show me where you want to put the skills. Tell me the kinds of people you need to run the city. Tell me where you're going to put your technology hubs. Tell me what you're going to do with those hubs. You can't do it today, but it's a vision. That's why it's called a vision. Put that scale in place. Develop 3 of it. Put one in the State House. Put one in your library. Put one in somewhere where children who are born today can go and look at the scale and say, by the time I'm 15 years, this building which I'm seeing here, which doesn't exist, will be there in 15 years' time. And let me tell you what will happen. You do not need to deliver the vision. You just need to start the journey towards the vision. The moment you begin to move in the direction of the vision, entrepreneurs all over the world will come to take commercial positions because they can see that you have shown track record that you will go in the direction of the vision. You do not need to deliver your vision. You just need to go in the direction. That's what Dubai did. That's what Istanbul did. That's what we should be doing.
Thank you very much. Very critical points you've raised there. Very beautiful point raised. And talking about obsolete information and obsolete education, I'm wondering, it just came to my mind that ever since I left biology class, Nobody has asked me any question about life cycle of a mosquito. So I'm wondering why we spent all that time drawing all those things. I don't know if they have asked you. I haven't been that lucky. Honorable Commissioner for Information, as we round off this particular session, the current administration of His Excellency Dum Emmanuel has done remarkably well, even in the opinions of people who usually do not like to commend governments. And then we also are talking about a journey to world class. Looking at the indices which Usain raised, looking at the things that have been talked about, what are we doing as a government to put us on that world-class path? Because thankfully we have been told we don't necessarily need to get to the vision. We just need to see it and work towards that vision. What are the steps the government is taking?
Thank you very much. It's usually nice speaking after Hussein because he sets the foundation, so all I just need to do is to put a
Next time I'll put you before him.
It's just to put a foot on it. And critical to every city is infrastructure. And like he said, so if you look at, there's a study undertaken by Brookings Institute which studied the gap between developed and developing countries. And so in education, they said that which is what Hussein has also alluded to, that the gap between developed and developing countries is a 120-year gap. So clearly that means that we are studying today what they studied 120 years ago. And incidentally, like we all know, now in the UK, doctoral students are being used to teach secondary school. And they've introduced research methodology in secondary school. So they are preparing children who go to the university with a research mindset. So now that same report says that the gap between to cure the infrastructure deficit between developed and developing or underdeveloped countries is 185 years. So clearly, and very simply for all of you who travel abroad, just simply remember the picture of Baker Street Station in 1891 and see where we are today. So you know that sincerely it's not a joke. So, but what His Excellency the Governor is doing is first, the infrastructure roadmap which at the commencement of the state, this state had a roadmap, especially the Uyo Capital City Development Area, so clearly defined. And if we do not adhere to those strategic documents, we are going to face what Pakistan is facing today because a third of Pakistan is underwater. The environment will complain, and when it complains, it has consequences. To that extent, what His Excellency is doing, which has been acknowledged by many people, is to see how to bridge the infrastructure gap. And bridging the infrastructure gap would not be a gradual process. It has to be leapfrogged. Because if we continue to do the gradual positioning of doing this after this, like Hussein has said, it would mean that the developed countries are not waiting for us. They're also developing. As we speak today, in the United States, in United Kingdom, in Dubai, and everywhere in the world, they are still building infrastructure. So the infrastructure environment is an unending environment. So what did the governor do? He did not just come to build infrastructure, he came with a new way of building infrastructure. No country in the world pays cash for infrastructure because infrastructure is long-term. It's facility, project financing, it's facilities that are used to build infrastructure. If countries were to pay cash for infrastructure, then it means that countries all over the world would have no money to do infrastructure. So that is why he's come up with strategies, which is why sometimes we run into problems with the journalists who cover us. Because at the end of the day, you see that the resources spent on infrastructure are not within the resources that the House of Assembly was able to appropriate for. Now, so what that means is that long-term financial instruments are being created because that is why a whole course of studies called project financing, infrastructure financing, that you can get the infrastructure today, begin to enjoy the infrastructure while paying for it in the future. So what His Excellency has done, for example, you look at the third ring road, which we've done, is a ring road that could have just been a dual carriageway. But clearly, because that whole area has been opened up and data must play a critical role in infrastructure positioning. Now, when you look at what that road opens up to, you see that the whole traffic from Le Méridien, where we are, all through this part, even from Shelter Afrique, when they have to go to town, we have to make use of that road. And so, because people would simply say, but you could have just made a dual carriage road and would have made savings. People will complain about the expansion of the airport road. But now the question is, it is easier to construct today and even pay tomorrow. So, for example, when His Excellency Otuekon Ironsinka was governor, imagine that the cost he used in building the secretariat, when Architect Obong Victor Atta wanted to expand that secretariat, if you remember, I think it was Ubong Tomia, just the joining, just that middle pass, cost more than the entire secretariat. Not that corruption was involved, no, but simply because the cost of cement had changed. The cost of things had changed. So imagine if he had borrowed all the money to fix the entire secretariat and we're paying today, we'll be paying all that at current reality. So,
okay, I didn't do that, but I think that has nothing to do with me. But Honorable Commissioner, I think you can just take a minute and round off. Thank you.
So, we need to fix the infrastructure deficit. And this infrastructure deficit is an opening for the private sector to come in. That is why toll gates are there. And we're getting back to the point, you see, we cannot be sycophantic and we cannot play the paradox in Nigeria. We must pay for infrastructure. Truth is, governments all over the world can no longer pay, and we still see toll gates everywhere in the world. We have come to a point where we must agree, do we want roads? For example, Calabar to road could easily have been fixed and tolled, and we have good roads to drive. That journey of 45 minutes has killed a lot of people. There are times people have had to sleep there, so the economic question would be, as we open up, because the infrastructure deficit is humongous and no government alone can do it. It provides an opportunity for private sector playing. The government, under His Excellency the Governor, has opened up the state. If you go from Ikoro to Ikono, you link yourself straight through the East-West Road. Unprecedented in performance, excellent quality of road, and you will see that. So His Excellency's disposition, which is why
Okay, I think...
just to end, when people complain that 6-7 months to go, we are still doing new projects, the reason is that the gentleman you elected as governor wants to work till the very last day. And he's saying, wherever there is an opportunity to do good, like the words of John Wesley, he will do all the good he can, wherever he can, until he cannot again.
Thank you very much, Honorable Commissioner, for information. Thank you very, very much. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I think maybe we will have to have another day for just this discussion. Because if we were to continue along this trajectory, I have received notices that there are people in the audience who would love to make their own inputs and contributions. I'm hoping that there will definitely be more for us to continue this conversation because it is an important conversation. We actually belong to the world, and the world will not wait for us. And if we must catch up with the rest of the world, we must move at a pace faster than they have, because a good number of different parts of the world have gone far ahead of us. Most people here know the book attributed to Lee Kuan Yew, that gentleman who for very many years superintended over the affairs of Singapore, directly or indirectly. The title of that book is From Third World to First World. Somebody once said that with the things going on in Nigeria, Singapore and Nigeria had independence at about the same period. They had similar trajectories of development at about the same period. But now that country is light years ahead of Nigeria. And that book is titled From Third World to First World. Having listened to Chief Ngodo speak eloquently about their days in university, so when you mentioned common room and air condition, I was wondering whether you were referring to universities in Nigeria. Because if you see air conditioners in universities now, it's only in the VC's office. And when the VC is in the office, when it's not in the office, they turn it off. And all of that. Someone posited that if a similar book were to be written about Nigeria, perhaps the title could have been From Third World to Underworld. In truth, that is something that we should think of. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we'll have to bring this panel discussion to an end, but let me thank very especially Ms. Otobong Tom, a partner with Lancaster Legal in Lagos, and the Right Honorable Onofiok Luke, member of the House of Representatives and Chairman, House of Representatives Committee on Judiciary, Professor Valerie Solomon, Professor of Agriculture and Gender Studies in the University of Uyo, Mr. Usen Udo, Human Resource Consultant, and of course, Comrade Ini, a member-born lawyer and Commissioner for Information at Akwa Ibom State. I think they have done well enough for us to put our hands together for them as they return to their seats. Thank you very, very much. I've been asked to ask that you take just one group. Okay, we'll take the group photographs. I think at the end, so that we can ask His Excellency to join. We can also ask the guest lecturer to join. For now, we would allow them go back to their seats. Please put your hands together for them, ladies and gentlemen. The brass band give us some music. Thank you. Shout. Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please. I think it is important for us as sons and friends of Akwa Ibom, daughters of Akwa Ibom, that we go back with the takeaways from this event. We should ask ourselves what we should do individually so that we can build a world-class state for ourselves and for our children. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, at this point I want to invite, and he has assured me he's going to take just 1 long minute, the gentleman who has been superintending over this event as chairman of the lecture series. He will give his closing remarks, and then of course we'll listen to the remarks of His Excellency the Governor. Ladies and gentlemen, one more time, please give a chairman's round of applause to the Reverend Monsignor, Professor Sylvanus Udoidem. Please put your hands together for him.
Your Excellency, and all the good people of Akwa Ibom gathered here, and of course our friend Chief Wodo, I'm sure you will agree with me that the meeting has been worthwhile. Well, it is called closing remark. I am not going to close it. I am not going to remark it. But I will keep it open, because from here we have to keep the discussion going. That's the only way we can continue to benefit. I personally have reflected on Akwa Ibom issues for many years since I became conscious of myself. As you can see in my where they put my picture somewhere, I have a lot of entries on some of the issues that have been raised. If I want to talk about them, we will just be commencing another lecture. But I am happy about all the issues that we have raised. The consciousness must continue, because in one of my entries, I said, it's very simple. How can a university professor become tan? No. It's not that he cannot read and write, but he's not conscious of himself. We have to take that aspect of our education very, very important. Self-consciousness. And with that, we will get to anywhere we want to go. So, I welcome you to the continuous discussion. Like I said, I'm not closing, I'm not remarking. We will continue to discuss. Thank you very much. May God bless all of you.
Thank you, the chairman of this occasion. I'd like to say that the topic for this event is very apt: Akwa Ibom, the journey to world class. And it will interest you to know that very many Akwa Ibom sons and daughters have achieved this journey to world class. His Excellency, the Governor of Akwa Ibom State, is one who has caught a state in the financial sector. And you would agree with me with that, with the experience he had in Price Waterhouse and rising to the position of a Director of Risk Management in Zenith Bank, that we can say that His Excellency qualifies as an Akwa Ibom son that has reached the journey to world class. The SSG that is here seated has also reached the journey to world class. Not the talk of the Deputy Governor, who has seen it all, as the first Commissioner of Information of Akwa Ibom State, as a man who has also carved a niche for himself in the journalism profession. You can agree with me that he has also attained the journey to world class. Very distinguished personalities. Your Excellency, join me as I invite the man who presides over Akwa Ibom State, The man who has interpreted the vision of Akwa Ibom State in the last 7 years and is almost getting to completion. The governor of Akwa Ibom State, Mr. Udom Emmanuel, ably represented by the deputy governor of Akwa Ibom State, Mr. Moses Ekbo, MFR.
Good evening. Please sit down. Thank you very much indeed. Allow me to respect all the protocols, stand by them respectfully because of time. But let me take the opportunity to thank and welcome our guest speaker, a member of the Ukehe dynasty. When he talked about his father, I worked for him as a press officer in his ministry when he was a minister in Enugu. Of course, I worked for the guest speaker when he was a minister in the Federal Ministry of Information. I worked with her senior sister when he was a commissioner in Eastern Nigeria government. And he is coming from a background that I know fully. Today, I thought it was a very pleasant coincidence for me that he had to come to speak, and he spoke about his family, he spoke about himself, which is true, absolutely true. And the other coincidence is that His Excellency the Governor, because of his inability to be here, had asked me to make a few remarks on his behalf, written remarks on his behalf, at this occasion, considering that I was part of this movement 35 years ago. I happen to have been one of those in the exodus that moved up to come to Akwa Ibom State. What a coincidence. And I count myself one of the luckiest persons that is leaving. His Excellency the Governor is unable to be here. All of us, most of us know why. He was urgently called out last night for a national assignment in Abuja. But he sends his regards, his appreciation to the guest speaker, the discussants, and all of you who have come in here to make this day what it has been. I want on his behalf to thank you for the very robust contributions that has occasioned this discussion, really pointing to where we are going, where we came from, and how we came here. Permit me, therefore, to read a few of his remarks. Akwa Ibom is 35. The odds we did survive. Rise, salute the vision. Join the celebration. A people united will never fall. The sun will shine. The rain could fall on our land, vast and mighty, richly blessed by the Almighty. Like bees in a hive, we worked so hard to make the honey flow, but not without the use of the hoe. This is legendary Bongos Ikwe, if you recall. In Nigeria is 25, a song which the famous Bongos Ikwe composed in 1985 to mark the independence anniversary celebration of our country. I have adopted it here with due copyright acknowledgement and modifications because it captures the essence of the Akwa Ibom story, which we are gathered here to relive as part of activities marking the 35th state creation anniversary and the last to be observed by this administration. Let me bring to your mind that the journey that we are talking about in this discussion began 35 years ago. It didn't start with this administration. On the crest of the Bongos Kika, let me, on behalf of the government and the good people of Akwa Ibom State, welcome the guest lecturer, the discussions, because the guest speaker is an affable and erudite gentleman, Dr. John Nwodo, the chairman of the occasion, the Reverend Monsignor Professor Silvanus Udoidem, and other invited guests to the event. Again, here there is a coincidence. Monsignor Professor Udoidem, I met many, many years ago at the Catholic University in Washington, D.C., and that he was chosen to come here to preside over this affair is very welcome to me personally. Akwa Ibom, the journey to the world class, fittingly summarizes the grass to grace story of our state. And given the depth of the agony from its birth pangs, the unusual twists and turns of the struggle, and the stoical perseverance of our forebears, there certainly was something mystical about the Akwa Ibom State journey. It was indeed an odyssey of fate. The story of Akwa Ibom can be likened to the story of Israelites as captured in the Old Testament book of Exodus. The summary of the Odyssey involved the formation of the Ibibio Union in 1928, and later the Ibibio State Union in 1948, with our fathers demonstrating consistency in the quest for self-determination under the banner of the core state movement, core signifying Calabar, Ogoja, and rivers. The struggle culminated in the creation of Akwa Ibom State on September the 23rd, a few days from now, 1987, by President Ibrahim Babangida. But as the joy of the creation died down, the challenges of the new state manifested. There were deaths of basic infrastructure, The capital city of Uyo was a rural, dusty local government headquarters. The roads were filled with potholes. Office accommodation was a huge problem. I personally, as Commissioner for Information, squatted somewhere around Wellington Bassey Road on a 2-room apartment. The new state capital, Uyo, was essentially a glorified village. But the hopes and the faith in our ability to overcome those challenges were deeply infectious. 35 years later, as we gather here today, Akwa Ibom has become a success story. To quote the late United States President Ronald Reagan, a city on the hill, inviting, enchanting, captivating, peaceful, and a destination of choice, which some of the discussants have spoken about. In aviation development today, our state is the only sub-national with an airline that is, according to experts, the best in the nation, the Ibom Air. Our sparkling and most smart international terminal building, the maintenance, repair, and overall facility, the MRO, is the longest taxiway are slated to be commissioned presently in a very short time. Our youths and women have bought into the Dakada philosophy as they are using the works of their hands to create sustainable living for themselves. Our children are making huge strides in the education sector. Digitalized general hospitals have been built in almost all the federal constituencies. Our state has become the magnet for tourists and investors because of the peace we enjoy. 35 years later, as the theme of this lecture says, the journey to first class, we have arisen from a backwater state to a first-class sub-national with spectacular growth and development across sectors. For the necessary suspense, I would allow you, and you've already listened to the rest of the narrative by both the discussants and, of course, the lead speaker. The lecture, of course, has come in time. Whether as a rhapsody for the fulfillment of the Akwa Ibom vision or a critical assessment of the contributions that we have all made in the course of the advancement of the state, I have no doubt that my administration will be booked on the positive side of history, but not without the building blocks that my predecessors had provided. That is why we remain resolute in our determination that what we have started must be protected and continued beyond 2023. And by the grace of God, we are convinced that God's own choice in our PDP gubernatorial candidate, Pastor Omaino, will take us on an even greater developmental strides. I want to personally take the opportunity again to thank all of you for being with us this evening and to congratulate you, Akwa Ibomites, for this celebration. The journey so far, as had been indicated in the discussions, can only continue with the right people on the right saddle. And I want to ask you this evening to thank God that we were created a separate state. We have an identity. Of course, we know where we are coming, where we came from, and we think we know where we are going. With your support, we will continue this journey unhindered. I thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We please want to invite the guest lecturer, the chairman on the occasion, the chairman of the planning committee, the representative of the chief judge, and all the discussants up here, please, to join His Excellency for a group photograph, please. Can we please just come up here and join His Excellency for a group photograph? Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, you've all been given tags to an invitation. Please hold them handy, because it's an invitation immediately after now for us to just have something to eat, please. Okay, a group photograph of His Excellency the Governor, the chairman on the occasion, the guest speaker, and the discussants of the panel discussion. Please endeavor to join us as indicated on the small slips that you've been given. Thank you very much. I'll take permission from His Excellency as Master of Ceremonies to join the group photograph, please. Thank you. Thank you. We'll allow them go back to their seats, and then we'll just take the national anthem and bring this to a close. Just remain where you are, ladies and gentlemen, please. And please do not leave without joining us as indicated on the invitation which you already have been given. Some here and some at the Vista restaurant, please. Thank you. Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you and thank every single person that came here. We congratulate Akwa Ibom for 35 years of existence. We invite you to join us at the other activities, the commissionings that are taking place, the event which will take place on the 23rd of September at the Goslar Akwa Ibom International Stadium, the state banquet and award ceremony, and several other activities culminating in the state Thanksgiving service on the 25th day of September at the Ibom Hall grounds by 10 a.m. We thank every single person and we wish you the very best, not just of today, but of the rest of the year, and of course, even much beyond. Having come to the end of this very important event, on behalf of my partner on this microphone, Ania Kanodofia, let me please request His Excellency the Governor and the rest of us to please rise for the national anthem. We will please remain where we are until their excellencies and the guest speakers have left, and they will leave first and we'll follow row by row. But please, like we said, if you have that invitation,